Welcome back, everybody. My name is Nick Fire.
And I'm MarcTheTruth.
And this is the FireTruth Nerdcast. We're back again to drop some more Fire Truth on today's hot subject. And today, we are going to talk about and deep dive into one of the most popular Marvel series of recent time, X-Men 97. But before we get into that, I just wanted to ask Mark, what have you been up to?
So as most days, I just go to work, come home, take care of the baby. But this past weekend, we did have a garage sale to get rid of a bunch of our shit. And we chose this weekend because we thought it was the town-wide sale. And I guess they decided to make the town-wide sale the following weekend, so it's this weekend. Usually it's the day after the 4th of July. So we probably could have made a lot more money next weekend. But we still made, I think, $220 and got rid of a bunch of shit. A lot of it's sitting at the curb right now for people to take. So if you live in Genoa, come fucking take our garbage. What about you?
Got a new mic because I wasn't super happy with my audio in the last recording, and editing it was a pain in the ass. So I got a new mic, and I'm hoping to sound a lot better and a lot more professional. So,
I think you sound a lot better. And somehow, I don't know what kind of Amazon ordering you do, but you have like same hour delivery.
Well, I got Prime.
Yeah, well, you must pay for something more than Prime.
Ultra Prime. It better be Ultra Prime for like $200 fucking that I paid for it.
Is that how much it is?
Almost. I think it was like $190 last time. I've had it since it was $100, and it has jumped like 20 every single time, every single year.
Well, you remember when Netflix used to be only like $7? And now you have the option to pay for like premium with no ads.
Now it's
like
$7 just to add somebody to your plan.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? I don't know. Everything's way too expensive. But that's good to hear about your garage sale. I saw the pictures on Facebook.
Yeah, we got rid of a bunch of shit. So that was nice. And it was a nice weekend. So it was nice to sit outside.
I just heard Jenny say that you guys might do an up.
Yeah, well, it won't be this weekend, but we'll probably do another one at the end of the summer. Because there'll be a bunch of shit from the baby that she's not going to be able to use anymore, fit in, that we'll probably get rid of.
So if you live in Genoa, go look for MarcTheTruth's garage sale.
Yeah, and everything was like $1. Or if you came up with a bundle of like a bunch of shit, it was like $10.
So you had a lot of Star Wars toys too.
Right? Yeah, I got rid of a bunch of stuff I had doubles of. But most of it didn't sell, so I literally put it back in a box and brought it inside. So, back to the collection it goes.
I hope your next garage sale goes just as good as the last one.
Hopefully.
And let's get into the show. So, X-Men 97 is basically a continuation of the beloved classic X-Men 90s animated series. What is your relationship to the animated series, and how do you feel about it? What was your experience with it as a kid? Did you watch it?
So I watched it. It was one of those things I don't know what channel it was on, but whenever it came on, I would always miss like an episode here and there. So I pick off wherever it left off, and I did try to go back and rewatch it from the beginning with Disney Plus. Never really got around to it, so I'm sure there's some major plot points, throughout the seasons that I missed. But for the most part, I mean, I know who most of the characters are and what had happened. But I thought it was great. And then with the new one, I like how they kept the animation the same.
Yeah, I love the animation of 97. It was awesome to have like that throwback 90s style, but still with like some modern twists.
Right.
I really enjoyed that a lot. And yeah, so my experience with the 90s animated series is pretty good. I mean, I watched most of it. I haven't seen every episode like you. I missed episodes here and there. And
yeah.
I've gone back and watched some, but it's 5 seasons. So that's a lot of time to put into something, even though it's a good show. But to me, I like the Marvel cartoons from the 90s, but I don't love them. I always felt like the X-Men one and the Spider-Man one, even though they're good, they always kind of felt like rushed episodes. Kind of like the pacing is kind of fast.
Yeah.
You don't really let stuff marinate in the story a lot. And even some of the voice acting was a little shoddy at time.
And I feel like some of the certain lines and sequences were kind of corny.
Yeah, it was definitely very corny. It has a lot of good stories, and as the show goes deeper than like season 1 and 2, it gets better.
Yeah.
But I always, like, even though I like the show, I think the originals are very fun cartoons. I always prefer DC's animations. Like Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond, all those are like infinitely better.
Yes, DC knows how to do animation. That's about it.
But I will say, for the very first time, I feel like Marvel's got it. X-Men 97, I think it's one of the best animated series of all time.
Yeah, I think it was great. It ended with to be continued, and knowing them, who knows how long it'll be before we get another season, or if they decide.
I think it's close, we'll get into that.
Okay. But yeah, no, it was very well done. I think if they go the same route with the rest of their animated stuff, it'll be a lot better, because a lot of their recent stuff is kind of just there.
Yeah, Marvel What If, I never really got into those.
No.
I do want to watch them for the podcast, because I've only seen a few episodes.
When they came out, I was like, okay, that's cool, and I got to see pictures of certain things. I'm like, okay, but
it's cool, but it doesn't, just because it's what ifs, I guess it doesn't really feel important.
Yeah.
Cool.
But then again, now with Marvel, with it being what if, technically all of it is relevant, because it could happen in any timeline now.
That's true. The multiverse, and even X-Men 97 ties into the multiverse, which, again, we'll talk about a little later. I like the original 90s series, but I think 97 surpassed it in every single way. And this is one of those times where, like, usually I try and avoid, like, nostalgia goggles and not get into that. But this is the one time, like, this is one of those series that, like, yes, use your nostalgia and celebrate this, because this was awesome that it even exists.
For me, like, the characters in it, like, everyone knows Wolverine, they know Storm, they know Magneto, they know Professor X, but, like, I knew who Morph was, but I didn't really like him, because to me, like, that kind of character is kind of a cop-out. It's like, oh, he can kind of just take and become whoever he wants. Yeah, like, it's kind of stupid. But, like, with the show, it's like, no, he's one of my favorite characters, because he's just a dick.
He was the funniest guy in the whole show.
He's just a dick.
He really was. So, all right, we'll get into our X-Men 97 conversation. Now, before we get into it, though, I always like to give a little background information on the series. So, X-Men 97 is a new Disney Plus series that released 10 episodes weekly, starting back in March 20th of this year. And again, it's a continuation of the beloved 90s X-Men animated series that ran from 1992 to 1997. So this is appropriately named because it picks up right where it left off in season 5 in 97. The revival was first discussed back in 2019 after Disney bought Fox, and that's there's been intrigue in the products since many high-level directors at Marvel Studios have cited the 90s series as one of their main inspirations, which you can see. I mean, series director and writer Bo DeMeo pitched the series in 2020. It was officially announced in 2021, making this the first X-Men project Marvel Studios has made since the sale. So, several of the original voice cast from the 90s series reprised their roles, too. And not everybody. The original voice of Cyclops actually died. I didn't know that before researching. No. But most of the voices came back, like Wolverine, Storm, Rogue. A lot of them came back, but not everybody. Another thing that was pretty cool is X-Men 97 weaved together a lot of different famous comic books of the X-Men. You have Life, Death, Inferno, E is for Extinction, Fatal Attractions, Operation Zero Tolerance, and various Uncanny X-Men issues. And this is where I was talking about is season 2 has already been written by DeMeo. So they've been working on it. So they must have knew this was going to be a hit right off the bat. But the issue is, and this is kind of weird, when DeMeo was pitching season 3, he was fired for abusive work conditions and OnlyFans contributions. So, yeah, interesting.
I could understand the abusive work conditions, but what a man does on OnlyFans and who he subscribes to, that's his own thing.
It's a shame too that the guy had to be a dick because he wrote a phenomenal series.
Yeah.
It really makes me scared for what season 3 might be with somebody else. But...
Well, yeah, and like you said, like, you know, it intertwined a bunch of different comic series in one episode or one season.
Yeah.
And a lot of shows from before try to do that, but it goes back to, like we said before, it was rushed.
Yeah, the original
like this was...
series is like just kind of like any other superhero show where it's just various episodes. Like you might get a 2-part or a 3-part.
Yeah.
But most of it is just like random episodes.
Yeah, this was one season of a bunch of different things packed in one, but it wasn't rushed. It was done well. Like they all kind of intermingled together.
Well, it had a 3-act structure, which is the most important part of any story. And I mean, fans and critics agree that this is the best Marvel release in years. I personally think it has a lot of incredible life lessons across just these 10 episodes. And I want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, that's the thing that is consistent with, well, this is obviously a newer cartoon, but older cartoons, like, you could watch an episode of, like, the Sonic and Knuckles cartoon, and you would learn a life lesson by the end of it. Same with SpongeBob and stuff like that. Newer cartoons for kids are fucking terrible.
Instead of going over just the 10 episodes, I felt like that'd be kind of like contrived and boring. This isn't like The Acolyte where there's only a few episodes to discuss. There's 10. So instead of doing that, I kind of want to talk about character arcs and basically the stories that the various different X-Men went through and the lessons that they learned or lessons that they taught us throughout the series, or their struggles and trials and tribulations. And I want to start with one of my favorite characters in this entire show, and he's someone that I always found to be quite boring and kind of lame, and that's Cyclops.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Like, when I was a kid, I hated Cyclops.
I didn't care.
I thought he sucked.
Yeah. Like, okay, you shoot lasers. You don't have claws. Fuck you.
And he always had that, like, Boy Scout voice, and, like, goody good.
Which they make reference to.
Guy. Yeah, they do. But X-Men 97, like, it really made him one of the deepest and most realistic characters of all of the X-Men.
Yeah, because he goes from being, you know, part of the X-Men to, like, okay, now I'm going to be in charge, which obviously that didn't happen. And then it becomes, he's a father.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jean is pregnant. And one of the, like, very beginning issues of the story is that Jean wants to leave the X-Men with Cyclops so they could be a real family, and he really can't accept leaving the team because he just lost his mentor. Because if you watch season 5 of the X-Men 90s series, Xavier was shot by Henry Gyrick, one of the government agents that hates mutants. And yeah, I mean, he struggles with that because he just lost his mentor. The others in the team are a little hesitant of him and aren't really taking him seriously as their leader. And he knows that basically without Xavier, the X-Men fall on his shoulders. But now he has a family, and basically what does he do? Because for years he's been fighting to have a family.
Well, yeah, now he's got a situation where the X-Men are his family. And he's going to have an actual family. So he goes through that struggle of, you know, picking a side.
Yeah, does he pick his teammates that are his family, or does he pick retirement and basically doing what he's fought for and trying to live a normal life with his love Jean and his baby? But they kind of get a few wrenches thrown into that plan, obviously, because first, Jean gets these horrific visions after digging into Gyrick's mind, because they hear rumors of another master mold who, basically, to give it a little background, the Sentinels are these giant robot mutant killing machines that certain scientists in the government made to kill mutants. And master mold is like the strongest one. And this Dr. Bolivar Trask, who works with Gyrick, created the Sentinels. And Master Mold, like I said, is the strongest one, and they hear rumors that it's returned. So they go to find Gyrick in prison and interrogate him. Jean gets into his mind, and what she sees are these horrific visions of graves, her baby crying, and just all these mutant tombstones all over the place. That scene was like very ominous to me.
Yeah, it was very foreshadowing.
But yeah, so Cyclops kind of takes control of the X-Men, and they decide to go after Oliver Trask. And before that, though, Gyrick says something that's really important. He says for the first time in the show, tolerance is extinction, which is something that will be brought up very much later. And yeah, I mean, Jean's visions were symbolism of the future. So anyways, they get Trask's location, and they go after the new Master Mold, and they find him. And this scene, like, I just want to talk about this scene for a second before Cyclops. Cyclops skydiving out of that Blackbird is one of the coolest fucking scenes I've ever seen. Like, when he skydives and he uses his lasers, that was so sick.
It was... he uses lasers to basically do the hero landing.
Yeah. Like, this is the Cyclops I want to see. We need more of this Cyclops, because usually he, like I said, he's kind of lame. Even the Fox movies made him pretty lame.
Yeah.
But this show ramped him up. He had some really fucking cool actions. But they go fight the Sentinels. Storm has this like Omega level threat scene, which was cool. Wolverine and Gambit have this sick combo.
Yeah, with
what did you think of the scene of them fighting the Sentinels, like the whole team on episode 1?
I think it was done very well. Like, everyone that worked together did it they did it seamlessly. Because, like, you know that certain characters, like, they like each other, but they don't. But, like, when they were in the fight, they all kind of just teamed together and threw everything together. I do find it in the Omega... Was it Omega level threat?
Yeah, Omega level threat.
I thought that was interesting, because I thought... well, I guess it did end up being said when Rogue faced one. So never mind, I guess that point's kind of moot. But yeah, I thought it was done very well, and everyone kind of showed their strengths as they were fighting it. It's like, for someone that's jumping into it for the first time, you know, like, okay, this person can do that, this person does this. That you're able to see what everyone's abilities are within that quick scene.
I love that scene. It was like right off the bat, episode 1 had some amazing action. But yeah, I like the Wolverine Gambit combo where he gets his claws like radiated with whatever Gambit's power is. It's some sort of explosive energy. But that was sick. I love that. But after they take down Oliver Trask and the good part of the government, led by Dr. Cooper, come and arrest him for his crime, they return to the X-Mansion, and a good old enemy Magneto is standing there and reveals that due to the will and testament of his long-lost friend Xavier, he's now the leader of the X-Men. How do you think this affected Cyclops?
Oh, I think he went down a spiral because, you know, he kind of viewed himself as one of the leaders next to Professor X, and now Magneto's coming in, and one, they don't trust him. And then now it's like, okay, well, I trust Professor X, but I don't trust the judgment of having him be in charge for everything that he's done before. And, like, right away you can kind of see, like, the struggle of that choice, because it almost seemed as though, like, everyone in there was kind of like, okay, I guess we could do that. Well, he was sitting there like, no, I'm supposed to be in charge.
Cyclops was jealous as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
But, hey, Magneto, you know, as much as Magneto has been a villain, the reason I like him and he's one of my favorite villains, like, of any series, is because he always is fighting for actually a good cause. He just has radical ways of going about it.
Yeah, he's in the right mind, just not the right action to follow suit.
100%. We'll get into Magneto for sure, and have a very, very deep dive on him specifically. When it comes to Cyclops, not really much happens after that, besides the fact that going into episode 2, his son, Nathan Charles Summers, is born. But right after Nathan's birth, everything's looking good. Everything's fine. Everybody's happy. We took down Master Mold. You know, Magneto went through the trial. He's good. But, ding dong. You just had a baby with a clone of Jean Grey.
Yeah, not even your actual, wife, basically. And, there's the whole scene where the child gets taken and she's basically face-to-face with Mr. Sinister in the house. And then they're all fighting, basically, demons in the house.
Yeah, that scene was awesome when, like, Madeline... Well, she calls herself Madeline later, but Jean's clone is like, she can't believe that everybody thinks she isn't the real Jean Grey. And when she goes into, like, the baby room and takes Nathan, that scene was, like, really creepy when Mr. Sinister was talking to her over the baby monitor.
Yeah, well, I did not expect that at all. Like, I thought, like, okay, she's going to steal the baby, because it is technically hers, but it's also his. But then it completely flipped, and it was basically Sinister trying to get her to bring him the child.
Yeah, Sinister had a whole plan that he wanted Cyclops and his clone-controlled version of Jean to have a baby, so he could take that baby and basically create, I think it was to create, like, an army of unstoppable mutants, because like, Cyclops and Jean's DNA together can create something crazy. But the scene that you were talking about when they were in the house, in the X-Mansion, and Madeline basically loses her shit because she's just, from heartbreak and devastation over the revelation of what happened.
Well, you go from having a child to finding out I'm not even a real person.
Like, the happiest moment of your life. Be like, how would you feel if, like, Jenny just came to you and, like, you found out there was a clone of...
She's like, comes back and is like, oh yeah, basically, I made a clone because I didn't want to have the child, but I wanted to have a kid. So this clone's going to leave, now you're going to live with me. It's like, well, I just made all of these life memories with this version. Yeah, that'd be terrifying.
Well, and the other really interesting part is that Jean and Madeline don't even know when they were switched. I mean, they may have been switched back in the 90s series. And we just didn't even know. Which is, like, that was a really fucking cool storyline. But Cyclops here, having one emotional trauma after another. This guy's literally walking trauma in this series, which is what makes him interesting. It's the only thing that could make him interesting. But, the scene where Madeline loses it and she transforms into the Goblin Queen and transforms the house into, like, a house of horrors. Literally a horror movie where all the X-Men are seeing their greatest fears come to life. Yeah. And then they're in hell fighting demons. That was an insane scene.
Yeah, and everyone... I mean, I guess they're all fighting their own demons, but, like, some of them you could really tell were, like, that is their fear. Some of it was like, okay, that's just a creature that you're fighting.
Right. Like, his, like, Cyclops saw, like, a version of Xavier basically telling him he ain't good enough.
Yeah.
And then
Gambit saw
Rogue and Magneto, which, we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
And then Jubilee and Roberto saw Roberto's mom, like, crawl out of the TV, like, good old-fashioned horror movie style. Yeah. That scene was sick. I liked, too, when they were in hell, another cool team-up which the show had a lot of, was like Cyclops and Bishop's team up, where Cyclops shot him with his eyes, and then Bishop shot the lady. That so many freaking unique and like really cool team ups in this show. The action was like top notch. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And like all of the team ups, they were great uses of everyone's power. Yeah, and like also showed that like, okay, he shot Bishop in the back with his laser, and he was able to absorb that and then use that.
In case you guys don't know, Mr. Sinister, I don't think he's the most known Marvel villain.
No, I don't think so.
Just to kind of explain him, he is a cool villain, and I did hear that he's going to be the first villain when the MCU adapts the X-Men. But Mr. Sinister is a scientist from the 1800s who has been cutting up mutants for centuries and stealing their genetics to prolong his life, which is why he looks like a monster.
Yeah, looks like a vampire.
Yeah, and he's a scientist that does experiments. He experimented on Jean. He made a clone Madeline he could control. He turned her into the Goblin Queen. And now he stole the baby of Scott Summers and Jean Grey to manipulate and have like this unlimited, powerful soldier.
Which all, Cable. I mean, had they changed the writing, it could have all been solved with him just being a normal human.
Right, and they do talk about that.
Yeah.
Jean and Storm have a little like discussion about hoping that Nathan is born human, but don't turn out that way. He becomes Cable. So we'll talk more about that too, because Cyclops, Magneto, Bishop, and Morph actually leads them to Mr. Sinister's hideout, because Morph had a really dark and like torturous relationship with Sinister in the 90s series. Like, in case anybody doesn't know, Morph is in the very first episode of X-Men animated series, and he disappears. I'm pretty sure for a couple seasons. And then he shows up later, and it's found out that he was kidnapped by Sinister and experimented on. Mm-hmm. Which is why he looks the way he does, because his real face is like torture. He transforms himself into that like white skinned thing that he is.
He doesn't want to view himself for what he is.
Yeah, the real self. But yeah, Morph leads them to go save Nathan. They fight the Goblin Queen. Magneto has a really cool scene fighting her, where he like they're like in a church, and he uses like the church colored, what is it, like
stained glass.
Stained glass. He uses that to try and like attack her, because he controls metal and all that, and materials and all that. And she turns it back on him and beats Magneto, which is a pretty big feat.
Yeah.
Magneto is one of the most powerful Marvel characters there is, and she takes him down. But being a clone of Jean Grey, it makes sense. I think Jean is one of the most powerful Marvel characters.
100%.
So the real Jean Grey awakens. She senses that Scott's in danger, and telepathically battles Madeline. And while they do that, they take a stroll along memory lane, and basically Jean reminds Madeline. She breaks her free from Sinister's control by reminding her about the birth of Nathan and how important of a moment that is to her, and how even if they can't differentiate their memories, even though they share the same ones, that memory is Madeline's alone. And that helps her break free from Sinister's control. And she gets back with Cyclops, and they go after Sinister, but it ends up being a little too late, because Nathan's already been infected.
Yep. Do we know exactly what that was?
I went back to what Beast said. Beast doesn't really have a story arc in this. He's just there for context.
Yeah.
Beast, he says that Sinister infected Nathan with a techno-organic virus. Because Sinister was trying to make him immortal or something, but like they took him out of the tank before it could happen. So
they basically told him like, yeah, he's gonna die.
It messed him up, and they said like he's gonna die. Basically, Cyclops can't handle it because he's like, oh my god, more trauma for this man.
Yeah, just had my kid, lost him, got him back. Now I'm
just had my kid. He got kidnapped by a murderous experimental mutant, and now I have to lose my kid because Bishop reveals that, hey, I could save your kid, but I gotta take him to the future, and it's a one-way trip.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, if you watch the show, I don't remember if they talked about it in Deadpool 2, but Cable is the son of Cyclops and Jean/Madeline. How do you feel about Cable as a character?
I like him. I think it's a good character with the way the MCU is going. It fits well because he's basically in Deadpool. It's kind of hinted that he's like a defender of the future. And anytime someone does something that messes with the timeline, he has to go and stop them. But he's not part of the TVA. It's a whole different thing. But I think he's a great character. But he's one of those characters that not a lot of people know who he is. Like, they know of him from the Deadpool movie, but if you don't watch 97, you're not going to really know the context of him and where he came from.
Or have read the comics or anything.
Yeah. You're just going to think he's like, okay, he's got a metal arm, he's got a gun, he's from the future. That makes sense. That checks out. Which I'm not entirely... I didn't read the comics. So I don't really know how he got the metal arm or what that's from.
I actually don't either. But that metal arm seems to be pretty important based on what happened later in the show.
Yeah.
I should look more into that.
Yeah, I didn't think to look into it.
Either way, Bishop takes baby Nathan, who will become Cable, to the future. His mother leaves him a telepathic message to carry with him into the future. His father is so upset about it because it's revealed that Cyclops' dad left him when he was a kid.
And he feels like he's leaving his son.
He feels like he's leaving his son, and he just feels like he can't be a part of just sending his son off to the unknown. But it's the only way to save his son. So, Cyclops is a complicated guy. Got a lot going on. He's literally, you look up trauma in the dictionary, it's Cyclops' picture.
Yeah, it doesn't stop.
So at the end of this, Jean and Madeline make up, and they kind of like reconcile their relationship. They kind of say, hey, we don't know who was who, but it doesn't matter. And Madeline, basically, this is when she proclaims, I'm going to leave the mansion, and I'm going to become Madeline Pryor. And as it's revealed a few episodes later, Madeline becomes a representative of Genosha and part of the council. If you guys don't know what Genosha is, it was actually from the original 90s animated series. It was like an island paradise resort for mutants that was actually just disguised as a paradise and was used to trap and enslave them. Because of course it was. Because humans suck. And
yeah. If it's different, we don't want it.
Now, though, after, I think it was Jubilee and Gambit and something else, it might have been Storm, I can't remember. I watched the episodes a few months ago. But after they beat the enslavers there, now it's become a safe haven for mutants, and the UN is actually going to recognize it as the first nation for mutants, which is one of the biggest plot points in this series. But Cyclops mourns the loss of his son, and he distances himself from Jean a little bit. Goes off on this interviewer that's interviewing him about Genosha mutant relations. Like, dude, just let it all out.
Mm-hmm.
He literally just said,
which then gives
we have to keep proving that we're people.
Yeah, but like, you just, they're trying to show that like you guys are part of the world. Like, you're gonna be part of the UN. You're gonna have your own space. You guys can still be here and protect us. But then you just went and gave everybody that's still on Earth a bad look.
That's why Xavier chose Magneto.
Yeah, he's like, this guy can't handle it.
He knew Cyclops was gonna crack getting this position, but I don't know. How did you just overall? How did you feel about like the Goblin Queen storyline and kind of the interconnection between Cyclops, Jean, and even Cable. How did you like all that in this
series? I thought it was I would have liked to have seen more of the Goblin Queen. Like that, that's something that not necessarily get its own show, but like had it not been a 10-episode season, like it could have been a couple episodes of them like fighting her and learning more about what she's about. But I thought it ended very well, where they all kind of came to terms, like, okay, we don't know who's who. She decides that she's going to leave, which then it works out because she's still around. And then she does end up running into Cable again, and she makes that first connection, which then plays in later. But I thought it was done very well. Like it made sense to have her leave on good terms, because you just fought her, and basically either she was gonna kill you or you were gonna kill her. And basically Cable went out the window at that point. Didn't really matter if it was his mother or not. She's dead, right? Yeah.
She died, because I was just going to talk about next how we're not going to talk about the whole Genosha thing right now, right. But this mutant paradise, at the party, the celebration for it becoming part of, and there's Mark's dog, our favorite dog. What's his name?
Obi.
After Obi-Wan, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Anyways. Madeline gets killed because Genosha gets absolutely destroyed, this mutant paradise, because of course it does. And beforehand, though, Cable comes to see his mother to try and warn her, but every time he comes, he's stopped by something.
Mm-hmm.
And we end up finding out, actually, that he's being stopped by basically what they talk about in Loki, an absolute point.
Yeah.
The Loki series goes over that with the TVA, how in certain timelines there are absolute points. I think Spider-Verse goes into it too, where there are absolute points.
Yes, you
and that cannot be
go
changed.
To do whatever you need to do, but for some reason
Genosha's one of them. Unfortunately, the destruction of the mutant paradise is just one of the issues absolute that points. They can't avoid.
Yeah.
But yeah, she gets killed. But yeah, I like the story of Cyclops and Madeline, Jean, and Nathan. I've actually, I'm not a big comic reader. I read more DC comics than I have Marvel comics. So going into this show, I really had no idea about any of these stories until I saw them. So that was a huge plot twist for me. I didn't know that was happening. When I saw the real Jean walk through the door, I was like baffled. Because I don't know. I just have never really read Marvel comics like that.
Yeah, I didn't know that aspect of the storyline. Like, I knew Cable was their kid. I thought it was going to end up being like some shapeshifter villain or something. But yeah, I didn't. The only comic I've read with Cable in it was one of the Uncanny X-Men, I believe it was, and it's comic book number 53 out of 100 in the story, so I don't really know. Yeah, I don't really know, other than like that's where I found out who he was, and then from there, I researched and saw other things. Like, I didn't know a whole lot of the story, that there was basically had two moms, one that birthed her and one that didn't.
Yeah, but I agree with you that I kind of wish the Madeline storyline maybe went another episode at least. It did kind of go a little quick, but at least it was good. Like, it was a good story. It just
it had its beginning, its finale, and then its closure.
As much as I liked the Motendo episode, I wish we got more Madeline stuff.
Yes, that was such a random thing.
It was. I enjoyed it for what it was.
I get why they did it, because it leads into the story arc of Jubilee and her learning that it does get better, and you can still enjoy the things you enjoy while being a mutant.
But it's is that as important as the Goblin Queen story? No.
Yeah. No. It was kind of just thrown in. Also, I don't really understand her powers at all.
She shoots fireworks at her.
Okay. Well, what is that going to do?
I want to know what determines what your mutant powers do.
I don't know.
You're just born, and it's like your DNA is just like, you're going to shoot fireworks, I guess. Fuck it. Anyways, moving on to our next character, I want to talk about Wolverine in this series. This is one of my more critical parts of the show, is I don't really think they did anything.
No, he was kind of just there.
He was kind of just there. I think I can understand in a sense, because
I mean, you don't really. If someone's going in to watch that knows Marvel, you don't really need to do anything with him. Like, you can kind of just have him be there. Everyone's gonna know what he is. They know he's gonna be off the handle.
Like, he's been the face of the X-Men for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So you kind of don't have to push him. I kind of like that they pushed all the other characters more.
Yeah.
But I still think he could have did maybe a little more. He kind of just killed a couple people or beat a couple enemies and then got wrecked himself. I don't really think he did all that much, unfortunately.
No.
But it's okay. Like I said, he's been the face of X-Men for 20 years. We've gotten so many Wolverine stories.
And I think it was one of those things where it's, like I said, like, everyone really knows who he is. So I think they wanted to put more emphasis on the characters that have been in the show, but not a whole lot of people really know what they do and who they are.
We needed to add more trauma to Cyclops.
Well, you had to make him interesting. You had to make him worth having in the show.
And he was. I love Cyclops, like I said. Wolverine, he was good. But not really much happened, though. He did have a tiny story. And
yeah, he still has love for...
Yeah, he still has love for Jean Grey. If you've seen the Fox X-Men movies, they did this same exact storyline in that, where Wolverine is in love with Jean Grey, but she loves Cyclops, and she doesn't love him back. Though she sometimes loves him. It's a big love triangle.
Yeah.
But it does continue from the 90s series, because there is a couple episodes that focus around Wolverine being angry about Jean not loving him. And it kind of leads to a contentious relationship between him and Cyclops. A funny scene that I really liked, though, he did have one of my favorite scenes in the series when Logan and Madeline are sitting there on the couch, and then, like, Madeline gets up and they're watching Magneto's trial, and then she's just like, the baby's coming. Wolverine's like, oh shit.
Yeah, I like how he got stuck being the one to, like, have to take her.
That was amazing. And I also love when...
Like, he was sitting there like, go ahead.
I love when he got to the doctor, and the doctor wouldn't deliver the baby because it's a mutant, and just, blah, blah, blah. And Wolverine's just like, I'll show you a C-section, bub. And he just claws out.
I like how he's sitting there, and, like, she tells him that it's coming, and, like, he's just sitting there. He's like, all right, I didn't have to go to the trial. I get to sit home. I have a day off. Like, this is nice.
And then he's like, oh, crap. The baby.
Yeah.
Of course I get stuck with the baby. The baby of the man that I hate with the woman that I love.
Yeah.
In this series, Jean actually, the real Jean, not Madeline, but the real Jean actually kind of, there's a couple scenes where she reciprocates.
Yes, she did.
Because the first scene when she wakes up, she senses how much Logan actually loves her. They share this little intimate moment.
Yeah, and then you get the other scene when she's in the water like Moses, with the water spread out.
Yeah.
And she kisses him, and, I think that is an added thing to his character. Like, they didn't do a whole lot with him, but he doesn't, like, he takes the kiss, he's not going to deny it. But he tells her, like, no, you forgot for a second. Like, you didn't mean to do that. You didn't know how much he does love her. Like, he could have tried to pursue it in that moment, but he's like, no, I'm not going to ruin what's happening.
Because he wants it to be true love. He doesn't want it to just be like, oh, you're upset because Scott isn't paying attention to you.
Yeah.
It was just a moment of weakness for her. And then the fact that she doesn't really remember who she is at the same time. And
which is interesting because, like, she doesn't remember who she is because, she has a clone of herself that gave birth to her child. Yeah. But that whole aspect of it with him not paying attention to her and her basically losing who she is a very big thing that does happen when people have kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that can happen if you don't prioritize those things. So, like, that was, a story arc that they kind of added in that relates to real life.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole relationship of Cyclops and Jean, and even kind of having Logan in there as a third party, is somewhat realistic in relationships. The last thing I want to talk about, though, is kind of a controversial one. Actually, I think it was pretty controversial. and I want to talk about why it shouldn't be controversial, is Morph. There's a lot of chatter online, and there's a few scenes in the show where Morph shows romantic feelings for Wolverine.
I did not notice that.
Really?
No.
Well, there's the one scene where, when they're in like the House of Horrors, where Morph is like, he sees Wolverine in the shower. It's just a vision, but he sees Wolverine in the shower, and then he walks in and he kind of says like, "Want me to get those tough to reach spots for you?" And then at the very end of the show, there's a scene where, when Wolverine is like bedridden after getting his skeleton destroyed by Magneto because he's made of adamantium metal, Morph does turn into Jean to tell him this, but he says, "I love you." And I looked it up because I wasn't sure. I was like, is this just him
trying to be nice?
Trying to be nice, like turning into Jean, just saying that for support? Was he just joking in the shower thing? Because like bros do that, bros make gay jokes. So I was like, maybe this isn't that. But then when I looked more into it, Bo DeMeo literally said, yeah, that was more confessing his feelings for Wolverine.
Oh, see, I didn't. Obviously, that's how he said he wrote it, that's what it is. I just viewed it as like, okay, this man is disheveled and is basically broken. I'm going to give him something that could help bring him back. That being the woman he loves telling him, like, hey, I do love you. But no, that makes sense because Morph being who he is, like, he transformed into someone else in order to say what he really meant.
Now, the real question is, has he turned into Jean Grey for Wolverine?
Maybe. That is a possibility.
I would like to know more about it, if that is the case. Yeah, they brought out that Morph is considered a non-binary or genderless character. It makes sense. Because
he can turn into anything.
Transform. Yeah, he can transform into either or. I wouldn't expect him to
something
really
different.
Have any sexual
specific
preference.
One. Yeah.
And that's something that we've seen in the X-Men before. I kind of just want to preface and tell everybody that's freaking out about this, because there's a lot of people, of course, saying that this is social justice and 2024isms being pushed into our Marvel shows. And I just tell people X-Men has always been a progressive series.
Yeah,
literally always. The entire point of it is to tackle reality-based subjects of prejudice and discrimination,
using
an allegory for racism. People might not know this, but the X-Men was created during the Civil Rights Movement in 1963. It was to inspire hope and kind of tell stories of racism, like what was going on at the height of it in this country.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, I didn't notice it. If you just go into a show to watch it, you don't have to pick up on those things. I feel like if you're looking for that in a newer show to be mad about it, that's where your problem lies.
It wasn't forced at all.
No.
Like you said, you missed it. I picked up on it, but I wasn't 100% sure of what was going on. But by the end, when I saw the I love you scene, it kind of rang in my head I think Morph is showing feelings for Wolverine. And I think it's, for a modern version of X-Men, LGBTQ and those rights, that is the current civil rights movement that we're kind of in right now in the modern day. So X-Men has always been progressive. It's always been a fantasy, commentary on tough issues that we've been facing in this country. Why wouldn't it tackle this? I don't see what the big deal is.
No. It's
and not only that, but another little piece of history that I have is that X-Men actually was the very first Marvel series to include a gay character all the way back in 1983 with North Star. Why are we forgetting that? They were the first series to have a same-sex wedding in 2012 with North Star. Mystique has always been both ways.
Yeah.
Just like Morph. This isn't anything new to the series.
No, it's because of the times we're in. People that don't like it are gonna attack it.
The only thing about it that I do want to maybe talk about is I'm not sure, like, going into season 2, I'm going to assume they're going to expand on this. Now, this is just my personal opinion. I don't like when they take established characters and change their, like, race or sexual orientation. Like, if it's a popular character like Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm wondering if they're going to develop this relationship more in season 2 with a romance between Wolverine and Morph, or will it be more like, this could be interesting, I thought. Could it be more that they're going to explore the fact that, like, Morph loves Wolverine and Wolverine doesn't reciprocate, just like how Jean doesn't reciprocate Wolverine?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and, like, now that I think about it, and you've pointed out where it did happen, in the one scene where Morph gets hit, Wolverine yells out his name, and it was kind of like a more caring tone than what you're used to hearing from Wolverine.
Wolverine definitely cares about Morph.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see if they go all the way with it, or if they're just going to tell a story of, like I said, like, reciprocation of love. Like, it kind of will make Wolverine understand that, like, maybe it'll help him get over Jean after realizing he's doing the same thing to Morph.
Right.
Either way, I think I like when they make a story out of it. I don't like when characters are just given a sexual orientation and then it's just their whole character.
Yeah.
Are the reason why I really was never a big Cyclops fan, because his entire story is just, I love Jean, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, it goes both ways for heterosexuals and homosexuals. As long as there's a story, which I'm seeing here with Morph, it's okay. I'm completely sold on it. I want to see where it goes.
Yeah, they're developing a story, which makes it work.
Yeah. As long as there's a story to tell and it's a good story, I don't mind it one bit.
And it's one of those things, like, going with what you said, where, like, you know, if they continue the story, that makes it better. It's also, on the other hand, like, don't emphasize it and then not give us the story. Like, don't cut it out because people got mad about it. Like, you wrote the story and it works. Continue it.
So we'll see where it goes. We'll see if they end up turning Wolverine to love Morph in the next season or not. I still don't exactly know how I feel about that, because, like I said, I don't mind when they change the orientation of characters like a Morph, who was never really that popular. Like, it's kind of giving him more of an identity to his character. Wolverine, besides an Elseworld story, he's always been, like, in love with Jean or other women. So, but it you know, it's okay to change with the times too. I'm not completely against it either, right? As long as it's a good story. That's all. Yeah. That's all that matters. As long as it's a good story and it doesn't feel forced, I'll be okay with it.
Yeah, and with Marvel, you know, you can pretty much do that to any character, and it's a different timeline, which is fine.
Right.
You know, just like with people that die, they're not really dead.
Right.
It's like all of those people that are going to flip out if they do go that route and be like, oh my god, they ruined Wolverine. No, they ruined that one in your eyes, but it's still Wolverine. Doesn't really change who he is.
No.
But if you're that mad about it, there's a different timeline that you can go read the stories on.
Either way, X-Men, like I said, is one of the most important and progressive fictional series of all time. So it tackling LGBTQ like stories, like, it's already been doing this since the 2010s and even earlier than that. So
yeah.
If you're upset about it now, like, get over it. Moving on, I want to talk about Jubilee and Roberto da Costa next. Pretty much happened with these characters, but you kind of talked about it earlier. I liked how Jubilee, you know, in the original 90s series, it kind of starts where she joins the X-Men and she's like the baby the entire time of the team. And I liked how in this series she was more of like a leader. Like, she felt like she did grow up a little bit. Like, it's been a couple years she's been in the team, and she kind of led Roberto into joining the X-Men.
She
was good character progression.
Yeah, she kind of did what everyone did with her, took him under her wing, and kind of was like, this is how we do things. Like, you can show your powers. Like, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, he was afraid to show his powers because of the fear of his mother finding out.
Yeah.
And she was kind of like that bridge to be like, hey, don't hide it, because if something happens to you, she's gonna find out anyways, and she's gonna be devastated.
Yeah, you're better off having her know, and then you can use them.
And even in the first episode, it was reminiscent of the very first episode of the 90s series where Storm is talking to Jubilee at like the top of the mansion, and Jubilee talks to Roberto about joining in the same place. I thought that was some cool symbolism. But let's get into Motendo, because I'm sure we both have some thoughts on it. I thought it was cool because I'm a video game nerd, and obviously Motendo is Nintendo. They just didn't want to get sued.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is it's Jubilee's 18th birthday. She wants to celebrate it. Magneto's like, nah, we got work to do. We ain't going to no arcade. She's all mad, and all of a sudden this console shows up, Motendo.
And I don't know about you. I guess never mind. I guess I would. If a random console showed up in my house, I guess I would play it. So never mind.
I would. I think I'd be very suspicious of it, but I also don't shoot fireworks out.
Yeah, true.
And literally have like this dude next to me that is like the sun.
Yeah.
So maybe I would if I had those powers.
Yeah, then I would just be like, all right, whatever, I'll jump in.
Quote that Jubilee said in this episode, though, that I absolutely love and 100% agree with and stand by, is that the only people who hate video games are bad.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Basically what happens is they turn on this Motendo, and it, kind of like Jumanji style, sucks them into the video game world. And it's cool because it's like 90s arcade, 90s arcade video games. And even though, dude, the music in this episode was top fucking tier.
The music throughout the whole season.
The whole show, the music was top tier. Whoever was the composer absolutely nailed it. And I love the fact it's literally just like different versions of the theme song. And let me say right now, while I'm remembering, the X-Men animated series theme song, the little like that song, that better be the song when it comes to the MCU.
It won't.
No. It needs, don't tell me. It needs
It
to.
won't. It needs to, but it won't.
I will be so fucking mad. That song is like my childhood. It is iconic. You know how many man children will cry in the theater like me?
If they hear that in the intro. But okay, here's the thing though. If they do that, like obviously you're not going to show characters that people don't know are in the movie. But if you do that, you better have in the intro the same way they showed like the stats of everyone.
Yeah, that would be cool. I just need to hear the song. That's it. Just let me hear the song a couple times, and I'll be happy. But anyways, Jumanji style, like Rock and Jack Black, Jubilee and Roberto get sucked into the gaming world. And we find out that an old enemy, Mojo, who's a galactic television producer, instead of doing television, he's getting into streaming video games because that's 2024. But even though it's 90s, he's in space, so he could be 2024 too. And he wants to do a series of Jubilee and Roberto stuck in this game, and everybody watching them endlessly fight through Jubilee's memories. And that was another really cool part of this episode, was seeing like past battles Jubilee was a part of, like in video games. But we then find this mysterious woman who Mojo considers to be a bug or glitch in the game, who keeps like messing with things, giving them extra health, kind of just like glitching the game. And we end up finding out this bug is actually a beta test version of Jubilee that wasn't erased and is now like broke free of the programming, and she's now old. Like we get to see like an elder Jubilee, which was sick.
Yeah, which I think, helped develop her character, because she gets to see like, no, I can still be who I want to be and grow up, tap into my full potential, and still enjoy video games, still fight bad guys.
Elder Jubilee, or the bug, glitch Jubilee, actually teaches real Jubilee how to use her powers better.
Yeah.
He shows her that, like, disc, like, kind of like a Krillin's Destructo disc, but in firework form.
Yeah.
And they use that, along with Roberto finally manning up and using his powers. This dude wouldn't use his powers in a video game. But do you think his mom was watching Mojo's show? Like,
yeah, you think she knew who he was?
Like, bruh. But he helps, and they They defeat Mojo together. They get free from Motendo. And Jubilee is so happy that Roberto helped that she kissed him. And it kind of leads to a little relationship between them, which, even though it was simple, I liked it.
Yeah. Well, you knew that it was going to that, because they're about the same age.
And really, besides for like the ending, pre-Genosha, the only other thing that kind of really happens, actually this might be post-Genosha, but it's kind of just relevant right now, is that Roberto stops hiding his mutant powers to his mother, and he finds out his mother already knew. She just wants to keep it secret for business, because at the end of the day, humans are still not accepting of mutants, and if they find out her son is a mutant, they might pull out of investments or whatever into her company.
She was being selfish.
Yeah, she was being selfish. And that'll come up more as we go on. The next character I want to talk about is Storm. I've never been, like, the biggest Storm fan. I like Storm. Like, I think she has cool powers, but I've never really been, like... She's never been one of my favorite characters. No. Even though I do like the fact that she's, like, an actual African descent character, which you don't see often. Like, actually from Africa, I'm pretty sure, because her name's Aurora, and she kind of has the accent. I like her character, but this show, again, similar to Cyclops, made me love her character. And I thought it was a pretty solid message that our society needs to see. As we go into it, Storm loses her powers after being shot by the Executioner at Magneto's trial. Like, Executioner, basically like a human radical terrorist that you wanted to take out Magneto, but he shot Storm instead. How did you feel about Storm losing her powers so early into the season?
Well, I think from trailers or stuff I saw before I had fully watched it, I knew it happened. I didn't know how it happened. I didn't like it at first, because I was like, okay, well, now she can't do anything. But obviously we got the story arc where she gets it back.
She'd get him back somehow.
Yeah, I like how she hinted beforehand that she always wondered what it would be like to be a human without powers. But with the Executioner thing, I think we're going to end up seeing more of that.
I hope so.
Because why would you only have one shot?
Yeah, right. And you're going to take it at Magneto, like the most powerful mutant in the room, bro?
Yeah, what do you think was going to happen if he actually got the shoot at him?
If you miss, like, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You're shooting at literally...
Well, he ended up being fucked anyways.
Terrorist. Yeah, but you're literally shooting at a mutant terrorist, bro. Like, holy shit. But I liked it. I like, right when she got shot, I was like... It actually made me more intrigued in the show, because I was like, whoa.
How does she get it back?
Yeah, and that's when Beast reveals, like, you ain't getting it back.
Yeah, there's no way.
What was in that bullet was the same stuff that's in the collars that they put on the mutants to, like, you know, de-enhance
neutralize
powers. Yeah, neutralize, that's a better word for it. She finds out that she was hit with such a, like, condensed shot of it, she can never get her powers back. At least this was Beast's analysis at the time. He actually says, I need to run more tests, but she leaves. So maybe if he ran more tests, he would have been able to say, oh, we can get it. But he never got the chance, because Storm, so devastated by this, she leaves the X-Men. And I really enjoyed the scenes, too. Like, they were really emotional, where she was trying to use her powers, and she's like, I can't feel the wind.
She couldn't feel anything.
When lightning struck and thunder erupted, it scared the hell out of her.
Yeah. Because beforehand, she could probably sense that it was coming.
Yeah. That was awesome. I love symbolism. That's what I always look for in everything. So when I see stuff like that, it just gets me going. So, an old character from the 90s series that I really don't know a lot about, but I know from the original series, is Forge. I guess he's an old friend of Xavier, and he finds Storm sulking at a bar, and he says, hey, I can help you recover your powers. And not only that, but he ends up having somewhat of an intimate relationship with Aurora. Adds a little extra layer to it, kind of like Jubilee and Roberto.
Yeah, but it also is one of those things where, like, their relationship formed so quick over their story arc.
We didn't get to see it, I think.
No, but it worked, because, you know, you got that back and forth of, like, him turning, her turning, but then they still ended up working together and being together. But I don't really know a lot about his character. I like his character because basically what he was saying was like,
cool.
if I think about it, I can make it.
He can do it. And I wish that was like kind of the same as the Goblin Queen. I wish we had another episode to kind of.
Well, I think we'll see more of him.
More. Oh yeah, we will. I just wish we got to see his relationship with Storm grow, like you said, instead of it just being like time skip. Oh, they're in love already.
Yeah.
But Forge, we end up finding out, like you said, if he thinks it, he can make it. Mm-hmm. And we find out one of the reasons he wants to help Storm isn't just because he loves her, but because he wants to redeem what he created beforehand. We find out he's the one that created those collars that neutralize the mutant's powers.
Which, why would he think about
why this happened to Storm, in a sense.
Because they took what he had made and basically reworked it to make it more concentrated.
I guess he had made it at the government for some point, and I love the little quote Storm says, "Don't trust the government."
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to tell her, "I love you," and I think she slaps him and runs off.
Yeah. So, that's when she got on the horse, right?
Yeah, she got on the horse. Because I thought the scenery in this show was excellent. Like, every episode had awesome scenery. They're like in a desert somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he found her in Texas and then went somewhere else.
Yeah, right. She's riding horseback trying to leave the home because she's just so upset. And I think there was an even earlier scene than that we forgot to talk about where he did do some sort of test on her. And
he put her in that tube thing and she went to go try it.
Powers never returned. But I do want to get back to that because I think they did return. But because of her self-doubt, she couldn't use it. But that self-doubt ties into the next scene because all of a sudden she's transported back to Forge's house and we find out the adversary, which is a demon that lives and feeds off of suffering and is feeding off Storm's suffering, is now haunting her. And this demon fights Forge and infects him with some sort of hellish infection. And that was a really, like, I didn't see any of that coming. That scared me off.
Yeah.
That was like, what?
That was a very interesting turn.
I loved all the, like, horror elements of this show.
Yeah. Well, and now that I think about it, I should have seen it coming. But, like, when, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. But when she goes into the tunnel and then it crawls back up the tunnel, I did not expect that at all. But, like, thinking about it, like, in any horror movie when someone's laying in a bed and there's a white paper in their hand, blood's going to drip.
Yeah.
There's a dark, vast nothing. Something's going to appear.
Yeah. Yeah, that scene, because what ends up happening is Storm and Forge. Forge, actually, his mother was a wizard, like Doctor Strange. And he uses Doctor Strange magic to banish the adversary from his home, which was like...
Yeah.
I like how they use Doctor Strange's magic and they still use the same one from the MC. Like, where it's like a circle with all the symbols. Like, it's so cool looking.
Yeah.
But he uses that to banish the adversary. But, of course, the adversary comes back. Storm and Forge have to go to an old war cave to find the Midnight Chala, which is some sort of plant that can heal these demonic infections.
I'm curious
and
if
that's what you were talking about, where she's in the cave, she has to crawl, and that a big part of the 90s series was that Storm had claustrophobia, and she has to get over her claustrophobia basically to save her love.
Well, it's also why he says, like, that's why I wanted to come, because you're gonna have to go in there.
Exactly. So, like you said, the demon, just like any other good horror movie, the demon crawls up and comes for her. And this is where Storm realizes that this adversary, even though in Marvel it is technically like a real demon, it's also more of a metaphor that she needs to face and beat her demons in order to bring back her power.
Yeah, in order to get back to where she was.
So she ends up overcoming her claustrophobia, ends up overcoming her own personal demons, finding the courage back within herself, and getting over all her anxiety and like the depression of losing her power. She kind of ends up realizing the power has still been in her. She just needed to get it out of her and find the courage. She gets rid of the demon, saves Forge, and I don't know, I just thought like it was kind of an empowering storyline for modern day, where like I think more than ever people have anxiety and depression, and suicide rates are through the roof.
It's very relatable.
Yeah, it was very relatable because like Storm was this very powerful, Omega level threat. Like nobody could stop her, and through losing one thing, it ended up breaking her entire character and her spirit. And it's all about just trying to find yourself again and rebuild from the pain and try and be better from it.
Yeah, it goes back to what we said where like there's life lessons.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of life lessons in this show.
Like you can overcome your fear and your depression and anxiety. Fear. It's not easy, but you can.
No. Everybody has demons that they need to beat in their minds that, might hold them back. I loved it. I loved that she was able to overcome all that, get her powers back, and she saved Forge. Now let's get into what I'd probably say is the most interesting group of characters in the series and what leads to probably the most interesting event in the series. Let's talk about Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit. Two very important stories were told with these three characters, and I think they're actually the standouts of the series. Because as we talked about before, Magneto reveals to the X-Men that Xavier left everything he owned and the team to him. Obviously, like you talked about earlier, the X-Men didn't really trust him. But there was one exception, and her name was Rogue. We ended up finding out that Rogue and Magneto had somewhat of a love affair in the past when Rogue was much younger. How did you feel about it?
I thought it was interesting, and her whole thing is like she doesn't like to touch people because she can feel what they have, but he can block that with his magnetic pulse or whatever. But it's one of those things like in the earlier seasons, when you're fighting Magneto and all these things are happening, why is it not something you would bring up?
That, unfortunately, is a major criticism of the show. Is even though I like this storyline, and this storyline is actually comic accurate to certain comics, it doesn't really make any sense that if you go back and watch the 90s series, Rogue has no idea who the fuck Magneto is in the beginning. Or at least, I guess they just kind of say she was pretending, quote unquote.
That she didn't know.
It just, if you go back and watch the first few episodes of the 90s series, it's not one of those retcons that work. Because she literally doesn't know who the fuck Magneto is. It's like the original show. But for all intents and purposes, okay, I can push that out of my head. I can just headcanon the fact that, she was lying. Because the storyline was really good.
Yeah.
Rogue, like you said, he can't touch people. Her touch literally kills them. And she struggled with this her entire life, which makes Rogue one of the deepest characters in the X-Men because she's a character who can't have any physical intimacy at all. And imagine how awful of a life that would be if you couldn't have even just, hold hands or just give a hug to somebody that you love.
I mean, she can.
She can, but she can't
physically feel it.
Yeah. She has to wear gloves. She has to wear a jumpsuit. Like, you can't physically touch her or you're going to die. So, like you said, Magneto, though, through his magnetism, he's able to form a barrier just enough to where he can touch her. And even because of their ridiculous age gap, she still loves him, in a sense. Well, not loves him, but she thinks she's infatuated with him.
Because it's the only person she can touch.
It's the only person she can touch and, get intimate with. But at the same time, Rogue has an emotional connection and an emotional relationship with Gambit already that was from the previous. So when Magneto comes into the picture, Gambit starts to get really hurt because even though they share this emotional connection, Rogue is in the club. There's a scene where she's watching everybody get like touching and dancing and she can't do it. And when Magneto gets into the picture, she can finally have physical intimacy with somebody. And she takes it over the emotional connection, which I think in a way is symbolism for how relationships have become in the modern day, where more people are interested in the physical aspect than the emotional aspect.
Yep.
Sometimes the emotion of the guys or girls who are more emotionally invested kind of get screwed over by just somebody hotter coming along in a way. Like, it happens a lot these days, especially with social media and people having instant access to each other constantly. And it was kind of some symbolism for that, because Gambit, no matter how much Gambit and Rogue love each other, they still can't physically love each other.
Yeah. But there's more to a relationship than just the physical aspect.
Right.
Like, she's getting the emotional that is the long-term part of a relationship, and then she just throws it away for some guy that's old as shit.
With Magneto.
Yeah.
You know, it's a sad story, and you feel bad for Gambit, but I kind of like that they didn't have Gambit, like, overreact to it. In fact, he kind of understood. He was more just disappointed, but he understood that, like, I can't give Rogue the physical aspect, and Magneto can give her both. So if that's who she chooses, I just kind of have to be her friend and accept that.
Are we on Genosha right now?
We're getting there. First, I want to talk about Magneto's trial, because holy shit, this is like the best scene in the entire show. This is my personal favorite scene in the entire show. And if I didn't already like Magneto, I fucking love Magneto. Because, man, Dr. Cooper, the government, they all show up to the X-Mansion. They tell this man, listen, you gotta stand for your crimes on trial, because you have done a lot of shit to humans, and we don't trust you. Whether Xavier trusts you, we don't trust you.
Because they don't really trust Xavier either.
True. Magneto agrees. He says, okay, let's do it. He goes on trial, and, like, this might sound over the top, but I really don't give a shit. Like, I think Magneto's speech, like, the writing of it, what he's saying in the speech, like, that shit needs to be, like, studied. That was some of the most incredible writing I've ever seen in a series, by far.
Do you have his quote written down?
I have a few quotes here that I want to mention, because Magneto's standing trial for his crimes, but at the same time, in this series, he's really trying to be good. He's really trying to change his ways and see things from Xavier's perspective of, instead of combating the humans, let's have coexistence. He really does try. It's not a facade. Like, you know, probably everybody was thinking at first, even the X-Men were thinking, what is this? Magneto is actually genuine. And something that I don't think a lot of people know, is that Magneto, like, his actual character, he's a Holocaust survivor. And he refuses, like, it's part of the reason why he's so angry, is because he doesn't want to see what happens to mutants, you know, happen to the Jews with the Nazis. Yeah. And it's a big part of his character. One of the quotes that he said that was just absolutely incredible was, it's very much how he started, where he said, as a boy, my people's homes were burned to ash because we dared to call God by another name. Then my people hunted me with those who had once hunted them. I was a freak, born a mutant, an abomination to their misnamed gods. In history's sad song, there is refrain. Believe differently, love differently, be of different sex or skin, and be punished. We sing this song to one another. The oppressed become the oppressors. What a fucking incredible quote.
And it 100% correlates to current events.
Yeah, 100%. Current events and history's past.
Yeah.
Over and over, people hate on each other because of different ideologies, because they look different. And it's just, it's absurd.
And what a way to put in perspective why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
Like, not only did he see the Jewish people, because of what they believed, get hunted down, then it was found out that he was a mutant, and then completely turned on by everybody.
Yeah. The Jews hunted him then.
Yeah.
And basically he's saying, you know, the oppressed become the oppressors. This has happened in history many times where, you know, certain groups have gotten their rights and then turned on another group. And it's like, there's just a lot of through history, through just human history, there is a lot of hate over, trivial things.
Yeah.
And I love this quote. Like this is an amazing quote, and for a cartoon series to have something this deep and this impactful in it, like it's why the X-Men '97 cartoon is now one of my favorites of all time. Just that quote alone. But I like the quote too because Magneto is acknowledging his mistakes. Like he was also the oppressed that became the oppressor.
Yeah. He followed the same path. Yeah, he followed the same path that happened to him.
Exactly. He's acknowledging his radicalism, but also acknowledging he wants to change. And, he wants to bring Xavier's idea of harmony to life. I just loved it. I absolutely loved everything about this. And I don't know, how do you feel about Magneto's character in the series as a whole?
Well, one, not the way I thought he was going to look.
True. Very different.
And I thought that was, not much time has passed, but I thought it was a refreshing new look for him. But his whole character as a whole, I always gravitate more towards the bad guys anyways. But like you said before, he's a bad guy, but he's trying to do the right thing. Even before 97, like, he's trying to do the right thing. He just goes about it the wrong way.
And even in the back of his head, he knows he's going about it the wrong way because that's even partially why he wears the helmet, so Magneto or so Xavier can't get in his head.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to realize that what he's doing is wrong. I don't know. I mean, I agree. I always tend to like the bad guys more, but bad guys who have a soft spot and like this, like they're doing things for the right cause. They're just doing it the wrong way. They're misunderstood.
Yeah,
that always gets me every time in a story. I can see that story 1,000 times, and I'll always love it.
I'll still resonate with it.
So this is the part where the executioner and his terrorists come into the trial and try and mess it up. The X-Men fight him, but the executioner gets through. He has the bullet. He wants to take out Magneto, but Storm gets in the way, and that's how Storm loses her powers. And this pisses Magneto off. And this is one of the coolest scenes in the show because I love the imagery and the background of him taking the court and the executioner up to the atmosphere, like space almost. And they're looking down, freaking out, like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. This guy's gonna drop us. But the thing I loved about it was Magneto. We really did get to see how much pain he's in over mutants not being accepted. Because even when he brings the court and the executioner up to space like that, or in the atmosphere, he's crying. He doesn't want to do anything.
He doesn't want to do what he's doing.
But
in order to get his point across, he has to.
The racism and prejudice in X-Men is just as dumb as real life, where it's like the X-Men are good people, and sure they have powers, and everybody's afraid of what they don't understand. But how many times have the mutants saved humanity?
Exactly. And
it's similar in real life. It's just so absurd. I don't even know how we're still talking about it to this day in 2024. But X-Men is still very topical. And I think it's important. I think it's an important subject to tackle. And it's good for fantasy to tackle these reality-based subjects because it gives people a lens to look through it without getting offended.
It gives them a lens to look at it without getting offended. It also gives someone that, doesn't really pay attention to what's going on in the real world, that watches these, it gives them that perspective to understand, like, oh, wow. What's going on actually is pretty fucking stupid. Because they may not connect with, what's happening to people they know,
right,
but they can connect more with characters that they enjoy and characters they know about, so they can make that correlation.
I was talking about when I told my friend Alexis we were going to have this podcast, I was talking to her about it, and we both were kind of just almost just absurdly laughing at the idea that it takes takes it to happen in fantasy for people to like take it seriously.
Yeah, for some people that's how it is. It takes them to see it in the worlds that they get lost in, to understand what's going on in their actual lives.
But I think it's absolutely important. And honestly, I think this show is a show that everybody should go out of their way to watch just for these reasons. But I have another quote here from Magneto, another one that's just as good. And it's when he's up in the atmosphere with the court and the executioner, and nobody knows what he's going to do. Is he going to kill him? He's crying. What's happening? He stops crying. He stares at the executioner. And basically, the executioner is freaking out because he's powerless in this situation. Mm-hmm. Magneto could crush him right here, and he should, in all reality, because this guy's a terrorist. But Magneto, he says this: bigot, ingrate, sycophant, worm, so small I could smite you with a step. There was a time I would smite you all for what was done to Storm, but today I have saved you from your own. For an old friend has challenged me to remember this view of Earth, how vast it is versus how small we make it. Charles Xavier entrusted me with his dream, and it does not ask you to love or embrace my kind as your own, but merely to accept that this is a shared world with a common future, and that my kind, like yours, have the right to live in it. So, another great quote from Xavier. He even says at the end, I'm trying to be better. Please, do not make me let you down. With the meaning being,
I will drop you.
I'll drop your ass. Don't make me do it. But also, don't make me let you down in the fact that I'm trying to change and be good.
And you basically force me into a corner to do what I used to do.
Just those two quotes alone, I think, make Magneto one of the most complicated but deepest characters in this season. And it really, like, his words, like, even just, like, spoke to my soul about just how dumb racism is in general.
Yeah.
So we'll move on. I'm sure we'll talk a little more about that when we get to another character up soon. But this is Genosha, where Rogue, Gambit, and Magneto arrive to find this mutant paradise. And because of Magneto just addressing humanity and wanting this human mutant coexistence, he's become the poster boy of Genosha, which I thought was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. He's worshipped as a hero by many mutants now. Nightcrawler even returns. How'd you feel about Nightcrawler?
I think he was great. They stuck to like his roots, and it's basically he shows up and it kicks off like he was never gone with him and Rogue and Gambit.
He also has a lot of really deep moments in this show. He also had a few quotes. I didn't write them down, but I remember them resonating with me. I love the fact that the X-Men has all paths and walks of life in the, because like Nightcrawler, if you know his character, he's like a Catholic.
Yeah,
he's like, I love the fact that you get the Catholic, but you also get all sorts of other forms and walks of life.
Yeah. Well, one, he's not human. Two, he's Catholic. It just shows that like they're basically accepting of everyone.
They're accepting of everybody,
but the humans aren't.
Yeah. Moving on, the Mutant Council of Genosha asks Magneto to become their king, or chancellor, and his only request is Rogue be his queen. This obviously complicates more of Rogue and Gambit's relationship, where this is where Rogue basically goes to Gambit and tells him, like, Magneto asked me to be his queen. Basically, like, this is where she officially is going to, like, break up with him. Mm-hmm. And Gambit has an awesome quote here where he says, some things are deeper than skin. Gambit does say, you know, if that's what you want, though, I'm not going to stop you. I'm here to support you. But some things are deeper than skin.
But I think he also viewed it as, like, the bigger picture, too.
It was, yeah. Gambit's definitely thinking bigger picture, where Rogue is just thinking short term because she's finally experiencing things that she hasn't in a long time.
Yeah.
And at the UN Genosian party, Rogue goes there, has this real passionate, like, seemingly loving dance with Magneto. You kind of think they're going to get together. And they kiss, but Rogue doesn't feel anything, and this is where she realizes
she doesn't have any love for him anymore.
Yeah. Even though she can be intimate with him, she doesn't love him.
Mm-hmm.
And she loves Gambit.
But it's too late, bitch.
But, like you said, it's too late because when everything's looking at the top of the world for mutants, just like in real life, this has happened many times, when everything's looking on top of the world, something evil has to come and destroy it. Master Mold, who they thought they took care of in episode 1, returns. This is when this is like answering what Madeline sees in her visions, all the gravestones, all the mutants dead. Master Mold from episode 1 is back, stronger than ever. And this becomes like a full-on tragedy for the mutants because their paradise, they're finally being celebrated, part of the UN, being recognized, it gets absolutely obliterated in seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Mutants are slaughtered left and right, and this paradise becomes hell in a matter of moments. And something that I really liked about this, though, when I was researching and looking up things about the director, Beau DeMayo, he said, and I really appreciate this as a 28-year-old who watched the 90s series when I was a kid and grew up with it, DeMayo says that he wanted the series to reflect the harsh realities that like our generation of 90s kids have witnessed since the original show. We've seen a lot in like tragedies in real life. And he said he wanted to reflect that because we've, seen horrible things happen, like shootings, mass shootings. And what he really, I think, related this to was 9/11. We can relate to it because we lived through some horrific things
witnessed it
in human history. And now Genosha is similar in this series. It's something that we can kind of relate to, make us feel more sympathetic for the mutants. And I just like how the series aged with us and didn't pull its punches. Like, it really hit a lot of heavy topics. And I love it. It makes me feel like I hate when a show comes back and just wants to be the same thing that it was, I guess. I like when shows come out and acknowledge the fact, like, this fan base has grown. We're going to make it for this. I wish they'd do that with Teen Titans.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate the fact that X-Men 97 did that. It didn't pull its punches. And
instead of having it be not in the same timeline, but, like, follow same events that are going on back then. Like, it was like, no, these fans have aged.
This might be 97, but for the people who watched it in 97, a lot of shit has happened since then.
Yeah, they have seen a lot.
So I like that. I really enjoy it. What did you think of the Genosha event?
Well, I thought it was tragic because, one, I didn't really know what it was until I watched this season. But the fact that they finally get accepted as an actual nation and then go to have their celebratory event and then it's gone. And then, all the mutants that are still on other, I guess, continents are all probably like, okay, cool. Like, we're on the verge of being accepted. Oh, nope, they just wiped out half of us. Now they're going to look at us as an issue because they're going to, not only do they wipe them out there, they're going to want to come and wipe us out all throughout the world. So
it was very reminiscent of like 9/11 because all of them are watching the news. They're all seeing this awful thing. Everybody's scared. Nobody knows who's going to get hit next, if anybody does.
Yeah.
Like, I liked that. I liked the tension, and I liked the tie back to reality. To get back to the story, though, even though all these mutants are getting slaughtered, Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit rise to the occasion and fight the Sentinel Army and Master Mold. I really liked Magneto. He had a really epic battle with Master Mold, where he was quote-unquote eliminated. And I liked him, like, saving the kids, and I don't know. It was just more to show Magneto is a good guy.
Yeah, he was trying to be good.
And Gambit riding that motorcycle was just
Yes.
But as we find out, more kind of tying what you said earlier, it's too late for poor Rogue and Gambit, because when Magneto is eliminated, Rogue wants to go nuts, and Gambit doesn't let her. Instead, he sacrifices his life to basically destroy Master Mold using all of the power that's in Gambit, and destroys the Sentinel army. But he had to sacrifice his life to do it.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that scene?
Well, I thought it was very symbolic. Because, like, even when she told him, like, hey, we're basically breaking up because I'm going to go be with Magneto because I can touch him. He accepted it for the greater good. And basically in that scene, he was like, accepted the fact that I have to do this. One, to save her from going insane and trying to kill everything. And two, for the greater good. Like, there's people here that can still survive. Something good can come out of this. I have the chance to do it. I thought it was good. I mean, I didn't like the fact that he's dead now. Yeah. That's kind of disappointing. But it was more so like he sacrificed himself for the greater good.
No, I will tease it here. He might not be dead, or he may be able to be resurrected in season 2. But we'll talk about that at the very end of this podcast to keep people on the edge of their seats. So
keeping me on the edge of my seat.
And you, yeah. Because we don't, just so anybody knows, we don't talk about these shows. We go in just raw, organic. Like, I even told Mark, like, just be prepared to talk about some heavy subjects.
Yeah,
but I didn't tell him what, really.
Yeah.
Anyways, before we get to post-Genosha stuff, though, I want to talk about one last character, and that's Charles Xavier himself, because, as we find out, he isn't really dead. They thought he was dead, but instead, the Shi'ar Empress saved him. Now, I don't know a lot about the Shi'ar. I don't know a lot about, like, the aliens in the Marvel Universe, but I do know that the Shi'ar were in the 90s series. And Xavier in general, as much as I love Magneto is probably my favorite character, but idealistically, Xavier is the character that I think morally I connect and agree with the most. So we'll see more of that in a second, because the Empress, Lilandra Normani, she reveals to her people that, you know, not only is Xavier alive, but she's in love with him. And he, what they call a Terran, which is basically people from the Milky Way quadrant, will be their new emperor. And just like on Earth with humans and mutants, we see that racism exists in space too. Everybody's a bunch of racists around here in this show. What's going on, Mark?
I don't know. I think I guess what they were saying was her sister thought that he would try to make them go to Earth, which they didn't want to go. They viewed Earth as garbage.
She called Earth, I laughed at this, she called Earth a Milky Way ghetto.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that space also has racism. It's not just Earth, guys. It's not just humans. There's more fucked up civilizations than us. At least you can take some solace in that. But Xavier is going to be the Emperor. He's considered a Terran. All the Shi'ar political leaders are like, no way. We're not having this Milky Way ghetto dude rule us. That's like not happening. And Deathbird, which I thought was a pretty basic ass name, but Deathbird, the Empress's sister, who just defeated Ronan and the Kree, and you guys might know Ronan and the Kree from MCU's Captain Marvel and Guardians of the Galaxy. They're main characters in that. Well, the Kree is a race, the blue people. But she invokes the right of Madasha and forces Xavier to prove his loyalty to the Shi'ar Empire by renouncing Earth as his home, and he has to erase all of his memories there. Did you think Xavier was going to do that, or no?
No, because when he's standing there looking at that one statue, I feel like he had a cop-out with who was in that statue to get away with not doing it, and he didn't take it.
He literally shows the hypocrisy of the Shi'ar where he says, like, yo, you guys are literally made up of different cultures. Like, I think the guy's name is Gladiator.
Yeah.
He says, like, oh, we're the Shi'ar. We give harmony across the galaxy. And Xavier's like, well, bruh, like, why you prejudice the humans then? He even says, and I love this quote too, Xavier and Magneto need to teach, like,
a seminar on life.
Like, yeah, like a seminar, like a legit seminar of philosophy in college. They say, or he says, Xavier, what is united if one half must be erased for the sake of the whole? And I mean, that's true even to American society. Like, there's a lot of us that reject other cultures coming in here, but like, they forget that this country was also made up of
different cultures,
and different cultures. Like, we are a society made up of all different cultures and freedoms, and basically the Shi'ar and Americans are very similar in that mindset, and the fact that it's like, we hate people that are different from us, but we're also made up of all these different cultures. Like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No.
And I like that Xavier basically exposed that. Not only that, but Xavier, he wishes to remember her. He doesn't want to erase his memories, even if that means he can't be with his love. And Deathbird tries to convince the Shi'ar Council to renounce her sister as the Empress. Xavier all of a sudden remembers, hey, I have powers. And, you know, psychologically traps all of the Shi'ar in the seminar, as Mark just said. He traps them in the astral plane and forces them to study their own civilization's history, and just showing them that they're hypocrites. I thought that scene was hilarious because they're all
yeah,
desks.
Yeah. He basically brought them to school,
and he did school their asses, because another quote that I loved from Xavier was, he says, "Coexistence is messy. The universe is very old, and all of us very young, born of ancient stardust and all children of the atom." And I kind of just wanted to say here, like, I love this quote because this is just my personal feelings in general. You don't have to agree with them. This is just my opinion. Is like, regardless of if you believe we were created by, like, Adam happenstance or a god or gods, like, we need to remember, just like Xavier said, like, we all spawn from the same force. And I feel like as a species, we're very naive compared to whatever our creators or whatever the understanding of the universe is. We don't know 100%. So it makes zero sense for us to hate each other and get caught up in these trivial differences, because, like, especially most of these issues are meaningless in the face of whatever lies beyond. And that's kind of what Xavier is trying to tell people. And it's the same way I feel. Like, I just think no matter what you believe, I think we're here to make the world a better place. And, you know, I don't think we're supposed to be worrying so much about what happens after this. I think we're supposed to be worrying about making this place better now. That's just my personal opinion on the matter. And I think if gods or creator or an atom or whatever it is that created us exists, that is what it would want us to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Xavier's saying.
I agree with what you're saying. Like, I feel like, you know, I don't necessarily believe in God and that's how we were created. I don't really know how it happened. But if whatever did create us, you know, if it can look at us and, like, watch what we're doing, it's sitting there thinking, like, what the fuck did I go wrong with? Like, they're just making things worse, not only for each other, but they're ruining their planet. They're ruining pretty much anything that's going to allow them to be long-standing.
Like Xavier said, coexistence is messy, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's necessary, and the fact that we're very young and think we know everything, and, you know, it's just, why should we hate each other? We're all in this together. Like, it sounds corny, but, like, it's true.
We're all just trying to live. Why make it complicated?
Like, why should we be upset over, well, this person believes this, or this person looks like this, or this person eats this food? Like, at the end of the day, do you think whatever brought us here really gives a fuck about that?
No.
Like, in fact, I personally think having different cultures is what makes us as a species interesting.
Yeah.
If we all believed and looked the same and believed the same thing, like, we would be boring as fuck.
Yeah. And also, it's one of those things, like, if you look at specific cultures, each culture kind of pulls from another culture that either doesn't exist anymore or is slowly going away to continue that culture in a new way.
Yeah, it's just, I just think everybody puts so much focus on the afterlife or what happens later. Like, we need to focus, like, I guess the best way to put it is, we need to focus, and I think we're here to make this place heaven, not focus on getting there.
Yeah, make where you're living a heaven for yourself.
That's just my opinion. I know people aren't going to agree with that, and that's fine. Everybody has their own opinion, and that's what makes living here a great place. Everybody can believe what they want to believe.
Yeah.
As long as it isn't detrimental to another person. So, getting back into the X-Men 97 series, Charles' psychic power, he has them trapped, and he's showing them, like, you guys have gobbled up all these other cultures, you've become one. All these cultures are what makes you great, but you're over here telling me that I can't be part of your civilization because I'm from another race. Like, that doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't add up, bro. All of a sudden, though, his senses are shook because he feels Gambit's death and the slaughtering of the mutants of Genosha. And instead of fighting for Shi'ar and trying to convince them, my dude just says, fuck this, I'm going back to Earth, I don't give a shit.
Yep.
I need to save my X-Men. And he goes back to Earth. So now we'll get into the post-Genosha incident. We'll kind of start to get through this quicker now, because this is more just general stuff, not as much, deep conversation here.
Yeah, this is more so everyone's just together and like, all right, we're going to fuck shit up.
This is like the last 4 episodes, I think, of the series.
Yeah.
A funeral is held for Gambit, but Rogue isn't there.
Which makes sense.
Where is Rogue, Mark?
She's trying to kill everybody.
She literally invades a U.S. facility that they say the Hulk can't break into.
Yep.
She gets in there effortlessly, takes down the military, and basically says, where the fuck is Gyrick and Trask? Where are the ones that made the Sentinels and Master Mold? I'm coming for them. They don't really have a good answer. I think they just kind of lead her to this facility, and I think one of the most interesting scenes in the show happens here, where when Rogue is searching for this facility, she runs into Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
How did you like that?
I thought that was interesting. I didn't expect it.
Right.
But he basically tells her, like, I get it. I understand. But it's not a good look for you to do this right now. Like, you can't do it this way. Like, he's basically telling her, like, I'm trying to get to the bottom of it the right way. The way you're doing it ain't gonna work.
The way you're doing it, bro, it's emotionally driven. It's not.
Yeah,
smart.
It's not.
And honestly, Rogue's entire character has been like too emotionally driven in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and then she basically takes a shield and says, "Fuck you, I'm leaving."
Yeah. Well, they find this acronym OZT.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is. Captain America finds out that
OZT or OCT.
OZT.
OZT.
Captain America finds out that Gyrick was transferred to a facility in Mexico, because of course he was. And he says, like, yo, listen, kind of expanding on what Mark said, like, I can't go to Mexico in these colors and just start fucking people up.
Yeah, exactly. Not only is there a war going on your front, I'm going to create a different war.
Yeah, like he's trying to tiptoe, like Captain America does. He tries to tiptoe around the situation for everybody's benefit. Rogue is kind of mad about it because she's like, well, you're not fighting for my mutant rights, and I'm part of your country. You should be fighting for me. You're not fighting for me. And like you said, she throws his shield for miles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he ever finds his shield again.
I don't think he's shown with it when we see him later. Yeah.
But Rogue, being emotionally driven, decides, like, fuck this, I'm going to Mexico.
I'm still going to Mexico, yeah.
I'm going there and I'm getting this guy. While that's happening, the X-Men arrive in the ruins of Genosha and kind of help the survivors, get things back together, find some of the people still under the rubble. Like, it's a mess. It's horrifying, just like any real event like that. And they start hearing rumors from some of the other mutants that, like, a human-mutant war is brewing, which cannot be good for the world.
Yeah.
This is also where Cyclops apologizes to Jean for how rocky their relationship has become. And while that's going on, the creator of the Sentinels, Bolivar Trask, contacts the X-Men, tells them that, hey, I didn't have anything to do with this. Mr. Sinister was behind this. And if you want to find out more, go to Madripoor, behind a diet soda machine. Now, Madripoor, for anybody that doesn't know, is actually a pretty important place in the X-Men universe. It's just like a city that they go to often in the comic books and stuff. I think they went there in a movie, too. I want to say Wolverine went there in one of his movies. It might have been The Wolverine. I can't remember what movie it was, but they definitely went there at some point in the Fox films. But Rogue, while the X-Men are going to Madripoor, Rogue finds Dyrick. Of course he's not in an American facility or a Mexican facility. He's in a fucking estate. Because of course he is.
Yeah, he's in a mansion, chilling.
And he tries to figure out, or she tries to figure out what OZT is. And she uses her touch to basically get him, but when she touches him, they both black out. Kind of reminiscent of what happens with Madeline when she gets Gyrick and then sees visions of what would happen in Genosha. So I don't know what the fuck's going on with that guy. You don't want to get in his mind, obviously.
It's a dark place.
Nightcrawler finds it. I don't know if you know this. Rogue is his sister.
Oh, you're talking about Nightcrawler.
Yeah, Nightcrawler.
I thought you were talking about the other guy.
Which guy?
The guy that. Why am I drawing a blank? The one that she had just found.
Oh, Gyrick? No.
I was like, what? When did that happen?
No, Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler finds his sister Rogue and kind of just, tells her not to feel bad about the deaths of Gambit and Magneto, and kind of tries to comfort her. The X-Men reunite. They go to Madripoor. While that happens, Gyrick gets suffocated by a mysterious figure.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's dead, and it's like, okay, who else is in this picture now? The X-Men arrive in Madripoor and find the secret door behind the diet soda machine, and it reveals another facility of advanced Sentinels, and Trask is standing there at the edge, ready to jump off and kill himself. Not only that, but we find out that OZT stands for Operation Zero Tolerance, and it's basically been like a program that, the humans have been working on in the shadows, more advanced Sentinels, and not only are they building more advanced Sentinels, but Sinister is making something even worse than Master Mold.
Yeah.
So, fuck. This is a lot to take in. I want to know your thoughts on the next scene, though, because Rogue stops Trask from jumping, finds out he has nothing left to offer, and drops him.
Basically like what Captain America said without saying it. Her motive is very revenge-driven right now.
Yeah, she's not
like, okay,
clearly.
We got all our information from you. I don't need you. But, no one reacted, really.
No one reacted because this is the guy who made the fucking machine.
Yeah, so they kind of all were... I feel like they're all thinking, you kind of did what we all wanted to do. So,
we just didn't have the heart to do it.
Yeah, we just couldn't bring ourselves to do it. And you're
Didn't Wolverine even say, thank God, or something?
Yeah, something like that.
He was like, someone had to do it.
But he didn't.
Huh?
I was going to say, he didn't die.
No, I was going to say, upon his seeming death, Trask mutates into what the OZT program has been working on, a hybrid Sentinel human, and he attacks the X-Men and beats the hell out by himself. This is where our little boy Nathan Charles Summers comes back, Cable, as an old man from the future. And somehow right away, Jean and Cyclops knew it was Nathan. I think Jean got in his head or something.
Well, I think she made a correlation to, his eyes.
Oh, right, because he has the same eyes as Cyclops.
Yeah.
Because, like, Jean's the only person that's ever seen Cyclops' eyes, because she was able to stop his beams in the 90s series or something. I thought it was awesome to see the reuniting of the family here.
Yeah, the family's back together.
Even though Jean isn't really his mom, but, like, it is.
Yeah.
His mom got nuked, so, you know. Anyway. This is also a big revelation because Cable reveals that, hey, Sinister isn't the only one around. He's not the only one doing this. We find out that mysterious figure that killed Gyrick is a man named Bastion, and he is revealed to be an evolution of the Sentinels. He is literally like a Sentinel that was born as a human.
Yeah, I don't fully understand that. Like, how he could be before that, and then just kind of continue to build on it.
It was something like, from what I remember, I think Beast explained. I think somebody says that his father was given this gene or something, this Sentinel gene, and then when he had Bastion, it like transferred into him. He's some sort of like organic cyborg.
Yeah,
like it's a weird but fascinating concept. And not only that, but we find out that Magneto isn't dead either. He's got Magneto chained up in the basement.
Yeah, he got him locked up, which we never see how he got him.
And he starts shaving him in this really awkward scene to like show that Magneto doesn't have any control.
I must have went and fed the baby when I was watching that scene again. I don't remember that.
Well, Bastion started shaving him and was like, it was basically like a control thing where he was like, I could like one slip up and I could cut you.
I could kill you, yeah.
Yeah, like it was like, I don't know. It was a cool scene, even though it was kind
of his character is kind of weird.
Yeah, he is a strange guy, and we're about to get in that now because we're at the part where we finally get into Tolerance's Extinction, which was a three parts of the series, and it ties back to what Gyrick said earlier. Humans' tolerance of mutants is our extinction. At least that's what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
So, even though the X-Men have saved them like 1 billion times.
Yeah.
So Cable explains that in his timeline, Bastion created the Prime Sentinels made with the same technovirus he was infected with. So somehow this guy, I guess because of Sinister, he got the same sort of thing that infected Cable and started using it to create these human hybrids.
Which basically are all just like sleeper agents.
Right. Beast kind of elaborates and says like the Prime Sentinels could reproduce. It's the next step of human evolution. Cable kind of says they enslaved the mutants in the future, and the mutants are like they're using them to like build stuff for them.
Yeah. Which
Wolverine is pissed about. And this is also kind of, we talked about this earlier, that Cable says that Genosha was an absolute point, which I like that it tied into the overall Marvel universe.
Yeah.
I even though I'm a little critical of the way they've handled the multiverse in Phase 4 and 5, I do like the fact that they've made it where every single thing is canon.
Yeah, every single possible thing that we've seen is out there.
So Bastion then leaks the footage to the world that Charles Xavier is still alive. Mm. And it kind of sets up a conspiracy against the X-Men and kind of trying to like get thrust between the humans and the mutants.
Yeah,
like, kind of
get everyone against them.
Yeah, that like they've been hiding Xavier, even though the X-Men didn't even know Xavier was alive. So Dr. Cooper apologizes to Magneto for what happened and even tells him that he's right, by the first person that ever said that to him.
Mm-hmm.
She also lets him free, which will lead into something here in a second. Cyclops, Jean, and Cable go to Bastion's childhood home and find his mother, which was like probably the most ominous scene in the entire show.
Like I thought she was going to be weird. Like dead.
Yeah, and we find out he turned his mother into one.
Yep,
which is pretty fucked up.
But then was it after that? I don't know. Oh wait.
Well, Jean senses the drawings of Bastion when he was a child and kind of sees that he's always had this
idea.
He was like a kid that had these weird powers that he could like talk to technology and sense technology. And I guess it's revealed that Xavier even was going to recruit him into the X-Men because he thought he was a mutant. And his mother was like, no. So Bastion could have been one of the OG X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, something else happened. He initiates Operation Zero Tolerance and literally reveals that he's been turning humans across the world into Sentinel hybrids secretly. And he activates them all, and now the world's in peril because all these random people are now these zombie-like Sentinel creatures that are killing mutants. How did you like that?
I mean, I knew it was coming because obviously we had seen what he was doing.
I mean, if you're gonna turn your own mother into a zombie,
yeah, you've already turned everyone. But I like how when it starts happening, like they don't fuck around. Like one, they know the difference between a human and a mutant, but they immediately just start going after everything.
They start going after everything. They even take down the Blackbird, the poor Blackbird. How many times is Beast gonna have to rebuild that?
Right. And then
Cyclops, like this is kind of dumb. Cyclops, Jean, and Cable in the fucking Porsche.
Yep. I was gonna say
how is a Porsche outrunning a fucking jet?
I don't know. Maybe we didn't see it, but maybe Jean put some kind of power on it when they were moving. But it was basically just like
cool to see the family together, having family.
Yeah, but it was basically one of those generic scenes out of like an action movie where like the person that they've been trying to rescue the whole time gets back with them, and then they have this epic drive off. It was
like a bad like 70s or 80s action film.
Yeah.
I just didn't like. And then the car explodes behind them because, again, of course it does.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this scene was dumb, honestly. A scene I didn't think was dumb, though, is when Jubilee and Roberto were running from the Sentinels, and then Roberto's mother literally turns him into the Sentinels that are trying to kill him. That was kind of fucked up.
Once again, being selfish because she didn't want to lose funders.
Now,
or whatever it is.
Magneto is freed. Bastion and Mr. Sinister are like, oh shit. And I actually wanted to bring up that Bastion and Mr. Sinister in an earlier scene, they were working with Dr. Doom and Zemo.
Yeah.
But that was just like cameos. There's more cameos we're going to talk about here in a second, because Magneto is so pissed about what's happening. He says, fuck it, I'm killing everybody. Humans are done. I'm killing them all.
Yep.
He creates an asteroid out of the ground of the Earth, which is Ra's fault, and lifts it to space and basically says, tomorrow I'm going to drop this bitch, and I'm killing every single one of you for all the awful things you've done to my people. He also shuts off the power grids of the entire world. And this is where we get a little cool cameo of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man and the same 90s Spider-Man. Professor X returns to Earth, and this leads us into part 2, where Xavier can't believe all the destruction that's happened.
Well, you shouldn't have left, motherfucker.
Yeah, right. Like, dude's over here living, like, with his girlfriend instead of, helping his students. But Magneto dons his red armor again, too, which I like.
Yeah.
I like seeing that anytime he wants to be radical again. Cyclops, though, he confronts Xavier when they get home. And he basically is like, why the fuck didn't you choose me to be the leader? And like, where were you? And blah, blah, blah. And Xavier says exactly what I said earlier in the episode, where he's like, I wanted you to live your life.
Yeah.
You've been fighting so
to
long.
Have a family.
Yeah, you've been fighting so long for this.
Basically, it's like, I went and had a family. You can go have a family. Let them figure it out.
He was just trying to, make his own actions.
Yeah, it wasn't really his intention. He thought maybe
that master manipulator. Anyways, they get in a little argument. Cyclops, of course, Mr. Trauma, doesn't really see it. And we also get Storm and Forge reuniting with the X-Men finally.
Yep.
And they decide to go back to their old base on Muir Island. Xavier also pleads with his X-Men to not take their frustration out on Magneto, because
his actions are somewhat justified.
Yeah, Magneto's actions are definitely justified this time. He also, Xavier, apologizes to Rogue for basically not being there for Gambit's death and like kind of causing it.
Mhm.
And this was actually one of the more interesting scenes in the show too, because Magneto confronts Xavier about humanity's wrongs, and he actually convinces Rogue and Roberto to join him in wiping out humanity.
Yeah, fuck you, Roberto. You're new to all this. You can't have that kind of opinion yet.
Dude was so scared to use his power for half the fucking show. Now he's gonna grow these big balls and decide to join Magneto. They go back to Muir Island though, because obviously Xavier and the X-Men are like, well, we're not gonna let him wipe out humanity. We gotta go stop him. He's being dramatic again. So they go back to Muir Island, and I thought this was really cool. They wear their old classic like comic suits. That was a really nice.
The yellow
touch.
and blue.
Yeah. They split up into gold team and blue team. Gold team goes after Bastion and Sinister. Blue team goes to space to stop Magneto from dropping the asteroid and basically causing an apocalyptic dinosaur destruction on humanity. Sinister confronts Jean, and actually, just like he did with Madeline, he controls Cable for a second, and Cable goes after Jean.
But
where were you
I was gonna say, when that does happen, I think I don't know, the way Cable acted, like he knew that like he didn't kill his mom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
He's like, nah, just let her go get charged up, basically.
Yeah. While that's happening, Blue Team confronts Magneto, and they have this like really badass battle. Even fighting Rogue, and like Jubilee fights Roberto, and they fight Rogue, which was cool.
But during that scene, like Roberto afterwards is like, "Oh fuck, sorry."
Yeah, he knew he fucked him.
Yeah,
too late, buddy. And then didn't he? Isn't that the scene when he becomes Sunspot? Or maybe that happens.
That happens when they go to stop it from falling after it being shot.
Yeah. It's revealed he's Sunspot.
Yeah,
Didn't already know. But this scene was sick, and I guess this is a classic one from one of the comic books. And I talked about it earlier, like this is when Magneto and Xavier are like fighting, and then Wolverine just stabs through Magneto's the back into the chest. But Magneto doesn't die. He uses his magnetic power to twist Wolverine's skeleton. How raw is that?
It's brutal.
That was definitely, and there was like blood everywhere. What an awesome fucking scene. But this leads us into part 3, which is the final part of our podcast. We get a flashback to Xavier and Magnus when they first met. But then it's revealed quickly that Xavier is in Magneto's head. What did you think of that?
I thought it was an interesting twist. I didn't put 2 and 2 together at first that he was in his mind. Because they're fighting, and then it cuts to that, and I thought, like, okay, it's a flashback of like how they met, how they made their plan, and like basically how they established like if something happens, like you take over. But no, then it turns out that like so when they first met, he tells them that with his telekinesis that I am a mutant, and then he tells him that I am and I can use metal, but then he tells him like don't talk about it because we'll basically get killed. Which I don't what time frame was they in?
I mean, I think that was supposed to possibly be when they met, more towards like World War II.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Because he does talk about like he kind of hints about like the Jews and stuff.
Yeah,
Magneto. But we find out too that Xavier basically had to wipe his mind, so he has to reteach Magneto everything.
Yeah.
While he's in his mind, which is crazy. But it's also so he could turn the power back.
Yeah, but it's also one of those things like jumping forward to season 2 or season 3, whenever it happens, like he's reteaching him everything in his mind. So like, is there going to be things that he leaves out?
Would be interesting, wouldn't it? I didn't even think of that. That's a very good point. Like, is there certain things he might not have revealed to him to try and make him more of a better person?
Like maybe he left out the fact that humans hate mutants.
Well, he knew that, but maybe he might have taken more of the radical part out.
Yeah, like the war crimes he's committed and why they were justified. It's like, hey, this didn't happen. You didn't do that.
If that isn't the case, that that would have been a really interesting plot point.
Yeah.
While that's happening, Gold Team's over there fighting Bastion. Bastion's kicking some ass. But I also like how Morph was turning into like the Hulk and all sorts of different.
Yeah, he was just turning into whatever he could to fight. But then he also turns into Sinister. And goes to go there with the collar, basically, and he's like, "You fucking idiot!
Yeah,
you think if you guys got this far, he would be gone?
Yeah,
he wouldn't come and get me.
Would have been long gone.
Good try, though.
Yeah,
good try, though.
Well, Bastion ends up getting fucked up by the Phoenix, though, because the Phoenix comes out of Jean. Which, if you guys don't know what the Phoenix is, it's like this old cosmic entity that for some reason really likes Jean and really likes to possess her and just destroy people. So,
but she
Phoenix comes out of Jean. What'd you say?
She was able to control it.
She was able to control it because it's something like a part of the... It's not like the real Phoenix. It's something like a piece of it still lives in her or something. And she can call upon it somehow. But she single-handedly wipes out the Sentinel army. And I love how she took away Mr. Sinister's upgrades and he became like an old man.
Yeah. And he asked Morph, what do I look like?
Kind of calling back, too, to what we talked about. Bastion rips off Cable's arm, beats him with it, and then fuses with it?
Yeah. I don't know if that's... Like, the only thing I could think of is either, one, Cable didn't know the potential of the arm, or he just didn't use it, or it's the aspect that it's a machine. It's a machine arm, and he can talk to machines, so maybe he was able to control it and make it his arm, his full body armor.
I didn't even think of that. That's a great point. It could have been, and I don't know if that arm is like... I'm guessing it's technology from the future.
Yeah, 100%.
So, if he fuses with future technology, I guess that makes him way more powerful, and he kind of does like this anime transformation and becomes this whole other thing.
This metal bird.
Yeah, like this metal devil demon thing.
Yeah.
We already talked about Magneto having his memory wiped, but and Xavier contacts Cyclops and Jean while he's in his mind and kind of tells him like, yo, if this don't work out, my mind's getting wiped too, so get prepared for that.
Yeah.
Of course, Cyclops is like, oh, what do we do without you?
The same thing you did before, except now Magneto can't be in charge, so you can't.
Motherfucker, weren't you just bitching earlier? You wanted to be the leader? Now we're crying about it. So, Bastion gets back to the asteroid. He comes to the asteroid. Gets confronted by Rogue, and Rogue whoops his metal ass for a second. But, she's still pissed about Gambit. And then, that was the Sunspot part.
Yeah.
Where he saves Rogue. Xavier ends up teaching Magneto his past and kind of having him come to terms with himself and maybe some of the things he may have did wrong. Though, as Mark brought up, maybe he didn't give him everything.
Yeah, maybe he left out certain key pieces.
But Cyclops, Jubilee, and Nightcrawler battle Bastion in a pretty epic scene. Gold Team arrives, and the full team of X-Men battle Bastion. And after they beat him, Cyclops kind of tells the team to stand down. And all of a sudden, the asteroid is hit by human UN missiles. Even though the X-Men just saved the day, here's the humans again fucking things up. Because they're afraid of what they don't understand.
Well, yeah, but they also didn't know that their plan worked.
That is true. They didn't know. And I thought it was kind of cool how they had the Avengers there, too. They had, like, Captain America and Iron Man, and Black Panther was on a screen.
Yes, so that's not the Black Panther that's in the current movies. That would have been his father, correct?
I think that would have been his father.
Yeah. I
think. I mean, unless in this version, he's, what's his name? The Black Panther's name?
T'Challa.
Unless T'Challa is in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's his dad. That's probably what it is.
I would think they would keep the continuity and have it be his dad.
And I kind of liked how the Avengers, because they're more of, like, human heroes, that they don't really have much of an association to them.
They're, like, in the government?
Yeah, they're, like, in the government, and, like, You can tell Captain America definitely knows, like, we're fucking up by sending these missiles up
Yep.
there.
Well, even by Iron Man's body language, you can tell, too.
Yeah.
He knew. He's like, they're gonna get it right.
Like, they know, but at the same time, they're still more standing for humanity than mutants. I just like that. I think that's a cool, like, dynamic.
Yeah.
Universe. I often always thought, like, it was kind of dumb, though, that the X-Men and the Avengers are in the same universe, because it's like, you fucking hate Wolverine, but you love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like,
but then it's also like, how do the Avengers not go and help them, and vice versa?
That's true. Like, why are the Avengers, like, because they work for the government?
Hey, Loki just sent down this whole entire army to fuck up everything. We need help. Can you send Wolverine? Someone?
Well, I think the only explanation is, in the 90s, I guess the Avengers were some racists.
Maybe. Even though we know it comes down to licensing rights and all that.
Not that. I think the director wanted to kind of show that the Avengers are more of a human entity.
Well, yeah, they're more of a human thing, but they know, like, these are still superheroes, too.
Yeah.
Like,
Captain
they've still
America
saved
was more sympathetic, though, at least earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always thought it was funny that it was like, why do the humans love Spider-Man, but they hate Cyclops? Like, they still have, like, even though Spider-Man was bit by a spider, he still has powers that could destroy humanity. Like,
yeah.
Why do you love the Hulk?
Why do you love Thor?
Yeah, dude's a god. He's above you.
Yeah.
Like, he could wipe you out in any second, but you're gonna be over here bitching about fucking some dude in a wheelchair. But anyways, I don't know. I just always thought that was funny. I like, too, though, just to say this real quick, I like that in the MCU, it seems like they're gonna make the X-Men from another, like, an alternate universe.
Yes.
That makes so much more sense, because then in that alternate universe, there's mutant racism, whereas in the main Avengers universe, there's no such thing as mutants.
No, they're just gonna get introduced to them and be like, oh, that motherfucker's cool.
Yeah,
that motherfucker's cool. Yeah.
That's a really nice touch, and that literally addresses all my concerns I've had ever since I was a child. Anyways, so the X-Men stop Bastion, but they get hit by the Magneto Protocol missiles. The asteroid starts going down, which, again, makes me wonder, like, why y'all didn't nuke it? Like,
yeah, what did you shoot it with?
Like, what did y'all think was going to happen?
Did you
and then even when the asteroid's falling, like, Iron Man didn't do shit.
Yeah, they kind of just watch. It's like, maybe it was one of those things, like, they're like, you guys fucked up. We're not going to help you.
It's like, well, if it happens, it happens. Or
it's one of those things where Iron Man's like, all right, I'm just going to stand in my suit, let everything fall around me, walk away. Captain America's just like, I'm just going to crawl out and be fine. Yeah.
Captain America's just like, damn, I wish I could have went to Mexico.
Yeah, maybe if he went there, he would have prevented all of it.
Right, it looked like that's what he was thinking about in that chair or whatever. But anyways, so the asteroid's coming down to Earth. It's going to collide. The X-Men all decide, like, at the ones that are there, some of them, like Jubilee and I think Roberto, left and went back to Earth for some reason.
They went down to, not Bishop.
Forge,
and who else is with Forge?
Can't remember. I just remember Jubilee, Roberto, Forge, Cable.
Yeah, because he was injured.
Remember. Yeah, I think it was Cable.
He was sitting in the restaurant booth.
There were still some X-Men on Earth, or that went back to Earth, but the main X-Men, like Cyclops, I think was Wolverine. No, Wolverine.
He was on the ship, but
he was on the ship, so
basically a corpse.
Wolverine and Morph were there. They weren't on Earth, but yeah, it's like Cyclops, Storm, Jean. The main X-Men are trying to destroy this asteroid and kind of just accept that they might die, and this might be their final time, but they're going to go out and they're going to save humanity again. And Cyclops and Jean kind of have a little emotional scene with their son. That was cool.
Yeah, he got to see his... It was symbolic that she was the only one that had seen his eyes. Now his son got to see his eyes and, like, telling him,
yeah,
like,
that was cool.
We might never see you again because, you know, you might go back to the future and we might not live.
That was really cool. I love that scene, too. Magneto suddenly reawakens. Xavier saved him and got him retrained and everything in their minds. And all of a sudden, the X-Men and the Meteor just vanish. They just disappear.
Yep.
Gone. And no one knows what happens. It even goes 6 months later. We finally get some sort of a explanation when Bishop returns from the future to the present and reveals to Forge, who's been looking for what the hell happened to the X-Men, that they've been yanked through time. Who yanked them through time? I'm going to be curious to find out. Do you have any ideas?
Deadpool.
I don't think it was Deadpool.
No.
I really don't know. I don't know a lot of the outside Marvel characters.
Yeah, I don't know what could have yanked them. It could have just been like...
It would be cool if they kind of linked it to, like... I mean, they won't do this, but they might maybe even link it to, like, Loki and the TVA somewhat.
I think it will get linked to that somehow. But I don't think it's going to be them.
It's not going to be them specifically.
It's not going to be them that grabbed them. Like,
yeah.
That's one of those things, like, had they not got pulled away, or if they get pulled away and come back, then we might see the TVA and be like, hey, you guys fucked up a bunch of timelines by getting pulled away. What pulled you? We have to go stop it.
So, this brings us to the last few scenes of the show.
Well, going back, though, Bishop and Forge, I don't know if they know each other, but it seemed like they did, and they don't like each other.
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah.
I'd have to see that again.
In that scene, it seemed as though they know each other and they don't like each other. Or Forge doesn't like Bishop.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. I'll have to go back and look at that after this podcast. But yeah, now we're at the last few scenes of the show. We find out Cyclops and Jean were yanked to the future, but not future, just the future, because they meet a young Cable.
Mm-hmm. Who is like a leader of something?
Yeah, he's part of some sort of like revolution. I think those characters are in the Cable episodes in the 90s X-Men. Same time, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, Xavier, and Magneto awaken in Egypt. Ancient Egypt, though more of an advanced version? Going a little Ancient Aliens with this one?
Ancient Aliens, I don't know if it's Ancient Aliens. Also, you might have done it. I meant to. The name that the guy they met, what was his name?
Saba Noor. And after researching, I discovered that Saba Noor is actually Apocalypse.
Okay.
So, but it was Apocalypse in ancient times.
Yeah.
So, before he becomes Apocalypse. So, basically, they're meeting the original mutant Apocalypse. And this kind of leads into the tease that I was saying earlier about Gambit. The after credits, we see Apocalypse. He has returned, and he's in the ruins of Genosha, and he's holding up Gambit's heart. So it does make me wonder, because Apocalypse is kind of known for, like, coming back to life and things like that, or being kind of immortal. It does make me wonder if we'll see him bring Gambit back somehow. Because I highly doubt this is the end of Gambit.
No, you can't create that story. Yeah.
Plus, you need to have the reuniting of him and Rogue.
Yeah. But who knows? He might come back and be like, hey, nah, I'm done with you.
I got a new girl now. I highly doubt that. He loves her too much. He has that pure love. He loves her soul, not her body, you know?
Yeah.
And luckily she realized it too. But anyway, so this scene, I don't know anything about these comics specifically, but I think I'm going to read them now, because apparently this scene of Apocalypse is setting up Blood and Age of Apocalypse comic stories for season 2. So I think I might go ahead and get those comics and read them and see what we have in store for the next season. Yeah, have a little insight, because I do like comics.
Yeah, I just getting a hold of them. I mean, granted, I'm pretty sure you can get them these days now. But
yeah, but they're expensive.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what is the right set of comics for you to get. And
yeah.
Sometimes stories intertwine with another story. And
yeah. I would like to point out that we missed a few cameos.
Right. I did want to talk about the cameos, but
okay.
What do you have?
Well, we had Spider-Man, which we talked about. We had Daredevil.
Oh yeah, Daredevil, right?
I don't know who the guy was in the armor, though.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'm gonna look it up. Hold on.
Let's do it live on the air.
This is why
As
we need
professional as possible.
Yeah, right?
All podcasters do this.
Oh, so it's basically, his name is literally just Silver Samurai.
Oh yeah, that guy, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's creative.
And you mentioned Zemo.
Yeah, Zemo, Doctor Doom, Panther. Is Doctor Strange?
Doctor Strange, yeah, we had him
Yeah,
too. He was performing surgery on something.
Oh
for
yeah,
someone.
right.
Yeah. We had Omega Red. We had Psylocke. Now we're getting to characters that I don't really know. We had Mr. Fantastic. Oh, probably from Morph.
We did. Yeah, we did have him.
That was probably from Morph, though, right?
Yeah, because now
because it shows the Hulk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cloak and Dagger. I don't know who that is.
That's a Hulu series, I think.
Doctor Doom. There was other people with Omega Red, but I'm not seeing them on this list.
Oh, there was a lot of cameos. Any others you can find?
Rachel Summers.
Rachel Summers? Really?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I'm gonna have to go back and look at all.
I guess she was in episode 8. Polaris.
Oh yeah.
Psylocke. I think I mentioned that.
Yeah,
already.
Psylocke.
William Stryker. And Sabanar.
Yeah, well, that was
you mentioned. Yeah.
Apocalypse.
Yeah. Then the Hulk. That was it.
Yeah, the Hulk. Yeah, a lot of those were Morph.
Yeah.
Either way, it was.
Well, there's a whole lot more that Morph did when they were in the trial.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I love seeing all those cameos. I like seeing like the '90s spin on the characters too.
Yeah.
Kind of takes you back. But that leads me to our final thoughts here. And one of the things I wanted to talk about with you, Mark, was like after the success of this series, like critically and fan reception, super successful. A lot of people said it's the best Marvel thing to come out in years. Do you see the potential for a Spider-Man 98 or an Avengers 99 even?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say you'd have to follow the same aesthetic that this one followed, but you definitely could. And I think it'd be a wasted opportunity not to.
Especially with Spider-Man.
Yeah. Like, because that, same with the X-Men one, like that had so many episodes, so many seasons. It'd be.
I watched that more than the X-Men.
Yes. I think that, and that would be so cool to see that animation redone with like modern technology, just like this one. Yeah. I think it'd be a wasted opportunity if they didn't.
Yeah, I think they could make a whole 90s, like, series here of different shows.
And like with the Spider-Man one, like, you could even go the route and have it tie into the Spider-Verse movies. Or the
you could.
Cartoon
he was
movies.
In those movies.
Yeah, you could have it tie into those.
It'll obviously tie into X-Men a little bit.
Yeah, and we got Spider-Man 2099 was in the Spider-Verse movies.
That'd be so sick to see him in that.
You could tie him into that.
Yeah.
You could tie Spider-Pig.
Spider-Pig, yeah. We could see a 90s Spider-Pig.
Yeah.
I mean, the 90s Spider-Man series did do the multiverse or the Spider-Verse before anything.
Yeah.
If you ever watch the end of the show, like, they had all the different Spider-Mans. They had Madam Web. Like, they were doing that back in 99, 98.
Right.
Like, or not 99, yeah, it would be 98 when they were doing it.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, that's something I'd have to go look and see where those shows left off to get an idea of, like, where they would pick up.
Yeah, I mean, I would think they'd pick up right after, just like...
Right.
And I mean, there was a lot of Marvel cartoons that didn't really end up being super successful, like Iron Man and the Hulk.
Silver Surfer.
Silver Surfer. I think there was a Fantastic Four one.
Yep.
Like, there were different, like, 80s, 90s Marvel cartoons that's why I'm saying, like, maybe there's even potential of doing an Avengers 99.
Yeah.
I would be so down to see, like, a 90s retro Avengers, especially after seeing Captain America and, like, Iron Man in this.
Right, and they would pretty much follow the same design.
Black Panther, Doctor Strange. I'd love to see an Avengers 99. I really hope that one happens, too. Yeah, I would like to see a whole '90s series. Why not?
Yeah,
Let's just do a whole '90s like multiverse here.
Yeah, I think it'd be very successful with how this
and
one
just
was.
keep it animated.
Yeah,
You know?
but like you have, I did say you don't have to follow the same guidelines that this one did, but you have to also keep in mind like the age group that's watching it now has changed.
Yeah.
It's like you have to bring that aspect to it. But looking at the options, I don't think they'll do Silver Surfer. It only had one season.
No. That's why I was calling it like Avengers '99.
Yeah.
Like they could just get all the characters in that one.
Right.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. And like Spider-Man is just so big.
Yeah, Spider-Man could just be its own thing.
Yeah. But I'd love to see that. I think there's a lot of potential there. And like you said, they'd probably be leaving it on the table if they didn't do it.
Yeah.
'97 was super.
And you have the rights to all of it now.
I think one of the most successful shows Disney Plus has had. And I think it's the highest rated show that came out this year so far.
Yeah.
And I see why people loved it, because it had a lot of great messaging, like I said before.
Yeah, not only is
really deep philosophical storyline.
Yeah, it's a very deep show. It's very aesthetically pleasing with the animation.
Mm-hmm. Definitely very nostalgic too.
Yeah.
Which people love. I guess I just wanted to really end it on two things. Did you think Magneto was right?
I would say yeah. I don't agree that it was the right jump to try and take everyone out. But I think he's 100% right. And I think is one of those things where Professor X should maybe listen to him.
I think if they were to fuse their ideologies together, they'd have the right leader.
Yes. So maybe that's what we'll get.
Both.
Maybe that's what we'll get is both of them leading the X-Men.
I mean, they had statues of both of them in Genosha, so they're obviously looked up to. I would love to see it. I'd like to see more of Magneto as a good guy. I enjoyed seeing that for once, instead of him always being like the terrorist mutant. The other thing that I want to leave this on too is X-Men '97. This is the X-Men I want to see adapted to live action. I want to see this style of X-Men on a movie theater screen. Because the X-Men that we got in Fox, even though some of those movies were good, it wasn't really the X-Men.
No.
I want to see these costumes. I want to see this level of like writing. I just want to see this style. Like, I want to see Cyclops be this badass like he was here. I want to see Wolverine in the yellow suit, which I know we're getting in Deadpool Wolverine, but I want to see him with the mask on and all that. You know, I want to see the animated X-Men come to the big screen. What do you think?
I agree. I want to see them in live action. I really think we're gonna get the cliffhanger in the Deadpool movie to tie into it. It's just a matter of, is it going to be this version of the X-Men or is it going to be some new version? But I think there's no reason not to with the multiverse.
Right.
Like even if it doesn't correlate with the timeline that they're going into, there's still the option to have them.
Right. I just want to see, it doesn't have to be this X-Men specifically, but I want to see this style. Like the costume design, the characterizations. Like, I want to see this level of thought and detail put into the live action X-Men. I think that's probably what they're going to do, because Fox didn't do it.
No.
Fox kind of did their own thing with the X-Men. And even though I didn't necessarily mind it wasn't the 90s.
It wasn't X-Men. Like, it was X-Men, but it wasn't X-Men.
It was like a 2000s, their own version of X-Men.
Yeah.
I want to see the 90s style of X-Men come to the big screen.
Well, we already saw Professor X, so...
Yeah, we did. We did see him in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So they've already kind of dipped their toes. They know. Kevin Feige has to know that this is the X-Men people are craving.
Yeah. Also, one last thought. How did Kevin Feige go from being like a B-list celebrity or a B-list actor to basically making two of the most popular franchises not making the most popular franchise, but like redoing two of the most popular franchises,
making them more popular. I mean,
Yeah.
I think hasn't he been working on Marvel stuff like forever? I'm pretty sure he was part of the production for the Fox X-Men movies and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man before he even got into the MCU. Yeah. I think I remember Hugh Jackman talking about how he didn't think he was going to get the role for Wolverine, and Kevin Feige took him out for dinner or something. Like back in 2000, when those movies came out. So Kevin Feige has a long history with Marvel. That must be why. I really don't know a lot about the guy. It's probably something I should look up.
I only know him from a few movies, and then obviously stuff he's done recently.
Right. Well, we know he's a mastermind. We know that regardless of how you feel about Phase 4 and Phase 5 of the MCU, you have to recognize that the Infinity Saga was a masterpiece.
Yes.
To have that many films be that good consistently and build up to the end game, that was a masterpiece in cinema. Like, nothing's ever done that before.
No.
Like, he did it. Like, he didn't make all the movies, but he was the guiding force
to make everything intertwine to one last movie.
It still, not to keep harping on this, but it still blows my mind that Disney had a Kevin Feige and then they fucked up Star Wars.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened. I still want to know how the level of organization in Marvel, and then you have the chaos in Star Wars.
He can only
That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, he can only do so much.
Pretty much the last thought I want to leave everybody with is just, I think, like I said before, this show, I think it's important. I think the X-Men is one of the most important fantasy stories in history. It's always been progressive. It's always stayed with the times. And I love that about it. And I hope it continues to be that way for years to come and tackles even tougher subjects as things happen, because they will. And I just this show after watching it even kind of made me feel more like we just should love each other, man, and just accept our differences. And I just want everyone after watching this show to remember, like, just be kind. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. You don't have to agree with everybody you meet, but you can have that disagreement, but then it doesn't have to turn to hate. It's like, I don't agree with that, but all right.
Right. It's exactly like Magneto said. Like, he basically said, you don't have to accept our differences. Like, you don't have to, like, love us, but at least, accept the fact that we live together.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful message. And that's why I think the show is important. And I think the X-Men are important. And I can't wait to talk more about the X-Men. We're not fully done with it yet, though. Because not next week, but the week after, leading into Deadpool and Wolverine, coming out July 26th, we're going to do Deadpool 1 and 2 films, which is actually an X-Men story. It's its own thing, but X-Men tie into it. So we're not done with the X-Men just yet. And eventually one day we'll talk about the Fox films for sure, because I definitely want to talk about all those. But yeah, overall, how did you feel about X-Men 97 since we're done completely talking about it?
I thought it was a great show, and it's one of those shows that's not only just, a cartoon that you can throw on, but you can learn and adapt and relate a lot of what was said and what happened to real life. Yeah. And you can make those correlations and maybe even have a different point of view on things.
This is one of those shows that it's like when people make fun of cartoons, it's like, put this one on.
Yeah.
Because this changes your perspective of how deep a cartoon can get.
Yeah. The cartoon doesn't have to be flashy colors and nonsense. Like, it can be a serious...
It can be a serious commentary or allegory on issues that we still face today. And that's exactly what this show was. I loved it. I think I really don't have a lot of... I know we talked about constructive criticism. I don't really have a lot besides the few things we talked about, like Madeline.
The only really criticism I have is just, there could have been more development of certain characters and more emphasis on new characters we got. And you could have probably done without the Jubilee episode.
You could, even though I still enjoyed
or
it. You definitely could.
Maybe not have it be a whole episode.
Yeah, well,
You
it
could have
wasn't
had
a
it-
whole episode. It was even just half an episode.
Yeah.
But still, it was like 15 minutes that could have been put to something else.
Yeah.
Either way, I loved it. I think it's important. And that's it. That's all we have for you guys today. Mark, you have any last words you want to say to the people?
No. But if you haven't watched it, definitely go watch it.
Yes. Please go watch this series. I think it's very important. It might change your perspective on things or add new perspective to you.
Oh, I do have one thing.
What do you
after you watch this podcast episode, if there's any shows that we missed that you think could have a 97 or 98, whatever, continuation of it, let us know.
Yeah, please. Hit us up on X. You can find us at FireTruth. Mark, how can you find us on TikTok and Instagram?
So on TikTok and Instagram, you can find us at the FireTruth as well. Right now, there is nothing posted, but you will get the links to our Spotify, our Apple, and our YouTube, as well as the links to our other platforms on those sites, and we will continue to add things to them as we produce more shows.
We also have our YouTube channel, which, even though we're new, I'm pretty happy with the numbers I'm seeing so far. So don't forget to go check us out on YouTube, like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify, and also a little tease here. At the end of the month, I'm going to be launching FireTruth Gaming, so that's another thing to look forward to. I'll tell you when I release that, so everybody look forward to that. I'm going to be doing a lot of video game retrospectives, reviews, all sorts of stuff, memories. I'm going to do a memories on the Xbox 360 because that's shutting down at the end of the month.
Yep.
And that's just one of the most important consoles of my entire life. So I need to, give it its tribute, give it its flowers. I'm sure Mark will join me when we do some Star Wars games or some games that he's played.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. And that's it. Next week, we're going to be doing James Gunn's DCU slate. We're going to be talking about every movie that's coming out over the next few years for the new rebooted DC universe. And this is going to be a fun episode because we're going to be able to get a little more creative. We're going to be able to kind of go over what we know so far. And then Mark and I are going to present our own ideas of maybe what we would do or what we'd like to see for each of these movies or the direction that Phase 1, Gods and Monsters, is going. So look forward to that. And that's the end of this podcast. Everybody be kind to each other. Learn some life lessons from the X-Men. And we'll see you on the next one.
Peace out.